Today's episode is brought to you by EliteFTS.com. Founded in 1998 with the primary aim to live, learn, and pass on. Please help Elite FTS support this mission by smashing the like button, leaving a comment, sharing with a friend, and thinking of us for your training needs. If you can put it in a gym bag or load weights on it, Elite FTS has it.
What's going on? I'm Dave Tate. We are broadcasting from the middle of the Elite FTS weight room, where the underground still thrives and you're part of the crew. It's time to sit down, keep it real, and cut the bullshit. Welcome to Table Talk. What's going on, guys? We are here on podcast 119. Real quick, before we introduce the guests, I want to thank our sponsors, MarekHealth.com. Marek Health is a telehealth platform that focuses on hormone optimization and preventative medicine. They have two routes to which they do this by, and if you've been listening to the podcast, you already know what this is. The first route is they can just take your labs, and then you can use those labs however you wish. You can go to your doctor with them or just figure it out yourself. That option's available. They do have some labs that are already pre-made that can help you with that process if you don't know what to test for, and that is MarekHealth.com Table Talk. The second path that they have is guided optimization, which I'm in the process of going through, that I told you guys I'd keep you updated on. So I did get my labs back, so now they're just waiting for one more lab, and then I'll meet with the practitioner. And then from there, the practitioner will decide if we need prescriptions for hormone optimization or certain supplements to go from there. My labs weren't so bad, which is because I've been doing this for a long time. There was a couple things in there that I haven't had tested before, so I'm really interested to see what they're going to say about that and then kind of compare it to what my doctor, Eric Serrano, will say, and that's kind of what we're going to see with that. The second sponsor, obviously, is EliteFTS.com. We've just dropped a new limited edition tee, which I'm wearing right now. As you guys know, the limited edition tees support the podcast. All proceeds go to the podcast, and they usually don't stay live for very long. So while you're there, pick up a the fanny pack. They were saying we should have had Joe model that one, or a sling bag, and a gym towel while you're at it, and there you go. First order, if you use the code Table Talk, we'll give you 10% off. The other one's not really a sponsor, but I want to kind of toss this out there because it's a friend of mine, and I was chatting with Justin Harris last night, and we'll talk about it a little bit with Adam here as well. And I just asked him how the seasonality works for the coaching that he does, the nutrition consulting, coaching, and so forth. And obviously in the summer it always kind of drops because the competitive career or the competitive nationals and stuff like that kind of drops off. So I just wanted to pass on to you guys that he does have some spots available, and that's at Troponin Nutrition.com. We'll put a link in the description. The only reason I'm saying this is because Justin is really, really hard to have the availability to work with. So if he's got openings right now and it's something that you guys have been thinking about, I would definitely contact him. I'm not making any guarantees here. He just said that he had openings, so I saw a window for people I know ask me a lot, hey, when's Justin going to be available? So go ahead and hop over there and check that out. I may or may not have been chatting with him about, how things went for your meet, which we'll talk later. Sure. But granted, keep in mind, I've been training with Adam for like 2 years now, and I've known Justin for 10 years. So it's not like we're breaking confidentiality when I'm saying things like, did he actually do what you told him to do? Yes. And certain other issues that I was kind of get the feel for. So our guest today is Doug Heath. We had him before. You guys liked him, so we brought him back. I got questions for him that you guys wanted me to ask, and we're just going to kind of see how the conversation goes. Adam's along for the ride because he trained with Doug in his basement for how long?
Almost 7 years.
So 7 years. So I'm sure there's some stories there that will be very interesting and a fun road to go along. So Doug, how you been since the last time you've been out here?
Good. Yeah, good. Everything's real good, David. Can't complain. Mm-hmm. Like you said earlier, it's getting old and getting older.
Okay. Start off something. Give me one story that he's just a whack story just to kind of get the ball rolling here.
Oh, all right. It's a good story. It's a fun story, one that he'll like, I think. The last time, let's go to the last time you really went heavy.
All right, you know where I'm at. We squatted and benched, and then you pulled a reverse band off the floor. And that was a fun day. So it was a day in the gym. It's the last time he really, really pushed, I think, in all 3 lifts in the same day. This would have been, what, 5 years ago?
6 now.
Okay, good. See, he's testing my memory. 6 years ago. And we did a full meet day. And do you remember how the lift went before your last and final attempt on the squat?
On the squat?
Yeah.
No. I
Okay.
don't.
All right. So keep in mind the day went really, really well. He ended up squatting, which, correct me if I'm wrong, it's over 700 pounds. I do know that. What was it,
705 or
There you go.
no, 711.
711? Because
Wait a minute, but he doesn't remember it.
No.
he doesn't remember the one
But he
before.
knows the weight.
I made both of those numbers up. I might have been 300. I don't know. And that would have felt like 700. I just remember I was 60 and that didn't feel good. That was awful. Yeah.
That's right, because it was just after your birthday there.
Yeah.
When we did this, and so
Merry Christmas.
he makes a 711.
December 24th.
We were sitting there. It was the lift before because you took briefs, and I think it was like 6. I think it was right around 6 or 585, something like that. And then the jump, you went to like 6 something with straps down. It was before you put the suit up. And oh my God, it went sideways. Like everything went absolutely sideways. Things are flying everywhere. He's already pissed. I wasn't sure if you were going to take the 711, to be quite honest. We're at the point in time where I think there's a combination of nervous and pissed off at the same time because we brought in people that day to come watch. And we had a half a basement full of people.
Yes, we did.
Usually there's like 6 people. We ended up having, I think there's like 20 people there that day. Probably about that, right? And so then everything's kind of already off the rails. It comes back and is one of these comeback movements. Smokes 711, buries it first off, and I was already pissed off because he buried it because I said up and he kept going down, which will correlate to something later. It's extremely entertaining. Comes up and smokes it, goes over to the bench. Mind you, he'd never been in a poly shirt. Never. Not one time benches in a poly shirt. He's been in a denim or a canvas. And for people who don't know geared lifting, denim and canvas is really how shirts kind of started. Really what it evolved to, I guess we could say. And I don't even think to this day you're still in that canvas shirt, aren't you?
Yeah, when I put one on.
Yeah. Okay, so
Sure is easy to get on.
yeah, slide on, slide off.
The reason I wear it.
And so he's like, we're getting through. You warmed up in the canvas, if I recall, and then we threw on that red overkill shirt. First time ever in a poly, and it's like that was a straight weight bench. That was what 505, wasn't it?
I believe so.
Yeah, 505, and he didn't take a warm up bench. No need. Just throws the shirt on and gets under 5. Had never benched in a poly shirt ever. Forget it. No need. Just throws it on. Takes one bench in it. I don't know how he found the groove, but he did, and smokes this 500. So I'm like, all right, day's going good. We go deadlift, and I think we got to like 3 plates in reverse bands. And all I remember you telling me, just we're sitting there, you and I were sitting off in the corner, and you're getting ready to pull. You wanted to pull 4, I think it was that day. And we're sitting off in the corner, and you just looked over, and it was one of the things I definitely remember. I remember from that day because we were sitting back in my corner, which is in the far corner of a gym. I had a whole corner there.
Yes, you did.
And we're sitting over there, and he's sitting there just kind of waiting to pull this 4. He just pulled 3. 3 looked hard. I could already tell he was tired, and he didn't really want to pull it. But at the end, it was just like, it was one of those moments where it's like, you know, I was going to go do this anyway. And I watched you kind of flip that switch. And then when you stood up, I don't know if you remember things. He was already happy. Everybody's had a good day. So I think you did this just to fake everybody out. Things started like the T-shirt that was on the back of the chair goes flying off. You start smacking the crap out of the pole. The chalk bowl, the little chalk blocks are starting to get chalked up, going everywhere. And it was, if I recall, you pulled it in that little singlet. Or was it the suit?
Yeah, we skipped. We did 1 plate, 2 plate, 3 plate.
Yep.
We skipped 4.
And then went straight
and
to
it went to
5. That's what it
511
was.
or 50, whatever.
Yeah,
It was.
yeah, 501 or
With the
511.
band. Yeah.
That's what it was.
Did I make it?
Yes.
I'm so good. Jesus God, I love me. Yeah. I'm never lifting
Yeah.
again.
Well, that's what you have me
yeah,
for, is to remember that image,
yeah.
right? Yeah.
So where were you in your lifting career when you first started training with him, like number wise?
Nowhere close. So I was competing somewhere between 48 and 65. This would have been in 2014 is when I really started training with Doug. So I would have been just kind of, I would call it on the cusp. So I'd have been 19 years old, and I'd have been just starting to hit, I mean, my squat was probably, I was approaching high fives at the time. Bench would have been somewhere in the low to mid threes, and the deadlift was right around 500. I've always been a decent puller for my size.
All right, so he shows up, and how'd this happen? Like, what are you thinking when he shows up? Because you got a small beat, you know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
So somebody's going to walk in there to train with you. You're either going to think, this is going to be like a waste of my time, or I got another spotter at least.
Yeah.
Or no, he's got potential.
Right. I knew he had potential, Dave. I knew that, but he came with. There was a little group of guys, so it would have been you, Craig, Joey,
Yeah.
and that's about it, I guess.
Yeah.
You know, there was somebody else there that, but he didn't exactly.
And
he didn't train.
Miranda,
Yeah, I
Miranda came over too. Didn't
Miranda
she?
came later.
Later. Yeah,
Yeah.
You're right. You're right.
So, yeah, I mean, I knew he had potential.
But you don't really see it until something happens, while they're training with you. That
Yeah, I think the biggest thing that jumped off the page was that he was just so calm. Like, no, I mean, I did.
well, it's the opposite of you, right?
Nothing could have happened that would have bothered him.
Yeah, yeah.
Nothing. He's on his phone, got the vape stick, 6 monsters, and, is it my turn? Oh, okay. And, he's very calm, but at that point, when they first got there, they were listening to this other person. This other person kind of had everything laid out. I didn't care. Here's, like you said, here's some spotters and some people. So I didn't try to, they weren't going to listen to me. They were listening to this other guy. And so that went on for a while, and that was fine. And I got to work in, and they were great with me. So,
you just wanted the spot.
I'm happy as a clam. These guys all like me. This is great. And I didn't pay that much attention until, the gym got blown up, is what happened. Not actually,
No, I get it.
So the gym gets blown up, and when all the dust settles, him and Craig are still there. We've lost a couple of people that had been around. One person had been there for 30 years. He was gone, and his wife. But he and Craig were still there. Well, this is interesting. So then we had to have a little team meeting.
Yeah.
And so, yeah, he was just getting started. And he and Craig had more time in than Adam. But this other guy, he was better than they were. He was. He was better. It was, I could see why y'all were listening to him. He had been in it for a while. He had been introduced to it young and blah, blah, blah. And he was better. So I don't know if you remember this or not, Adam, but we kind of had a little team meeting.
Yep.
And I said, okay, we got 3 things we got to work on this. I don't know how long this is going to take, but I need you to, we need to win a national title in the APF, need to win a world title in the WPC, and we need to coefficiently beat this guy.
All right, guys, we are back. Basically, here's what happened. We blew the power out. So if you're on the YouTube Live, I got a question, because we started this podcast with how many times is Doug going to have to take a piss during this podcast, right? So we have an over-under going on. Now, him taking a piss during this break, does that count? That's what I need to know in the live chat for you guys is, yes, it counts, or no, it doesn't count. Because Adam says it shouldn't count. I'm saying that it should count. So we're having a problem here. So does that count? And if you don't reply, whatever. I'm going to continue to where we were before we blew the fuse. Anyhow, what you were saying is you had to have a heart-to-heart with these guys because there's only a few of them.
Right.
And there were 3 things that you wanted them to accomplish.
Correct.
You know, the first one was win a national champion. The second kind of falls with that because you don't go to the Worlds. I guess you can go second place. Yeah. I mean, we can talk about that later if you want. But anyhow, you had to win a nationals, had to win APF, WPC Worlds, and beat the coefficient of the one guy that was helping them beforehand.
Correct.
Okay. So how did they take to that after you told them that? Because those are high standards.
Yeah.
Well, the Worlds is.
Yeah, they were fine. They really were. Craig, now your memory's better than mine, so if I'm lying here, you kick in. But Craig had been to a senior nationals, right? Before
he did. Yeah.
So he had went out there and I believe got second to Jim Grandick. Mm-hmm. Okay. So Craig had been to one, so he wanted to get back and so on and so forth. And Adam, you had been to something.
AWPC. I won the AWPC Nationals and Worlds in 15.
In 15. Okay. But you hadn't been on the next level.
No,
okay.
I hadn't taken that turn yet because that was our first endeavor into that turn in 16.
Right. Okay.
Yeah.
So, those were the things that, I was hoping for from a competitive standpoint. So they took to it really well. I thought. And the first thing was, I don't know his recollection or what he's going to say, but I never really coached too much, Dave, until I retired, which my last meet was 09. What he was talking about wasn't really a meet. We were doing stuff in the basement, and I was trying to see what I could do at 60.
No, I get that.
Yeah, you understand.
Yeah. Stupid shit
So
all the
I was
time.
trying to, exactly. And it just gets worse every day.
Yeah.
Excuse me. But I wasn't coaching, but now, after I retired, I had Abe, and Abe had done the same thing. He came in, had his own agenda. I didn't say anything. I was just glad to have some people, man. And he was a year in. He was not doing anything, and he just came in one day and said, "Man, I want to train with you." His name's Abe Herod, and so, and I talked about this last podcast, but I said, "Okay, I only squat twice in 3 weeks," and blah blah blah. He's 20-some years old, but he took to it really well. He did absolutely everything I did on the day, trained with me, and just figured out the percentages and so on and so forth. So, and he did win. He won the nationals. Unfortunately, didn't win the Worlds. How that goes. He got a bad call. The other guy got a good call. Those things happen. But he was second. But he did real well. And what meet was it, Adam? It was at Vets Memorial in the basement. Was that not the WPO? Would that have been the Arnold Classic?
Yeah, that was the Arnold Classic.
Arnold Classic won that big time and really lifted well. So I had that. I'd had somebody go through this. So I said, we can do this again, And these guys were great, I thought. There wasn't any, hey, we've been doing this, and, we're going to. They just said, yeah, let's do it. And I tried to train with you as much as I could. In a modified aspect. But they did everything, and clink, 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 and we just started checking stuff off, and senior nationals, bang, bang, they both won, and third guy was Christian. That was easy. You just roll Christian out, and he wins. And then got to the Worlds, and check. And Craig's last meet, which was the Worlds, okay, on the formula that I had, because, I'm old and I'm in my drawer looking at the formula, but on the formula I had, they both beat this guy. So they were better lifters, lifting in better meets and so on, in my opinion. So that's how it started.
Well, I know Adam is, he knows the history of the sport very
Yes, he
well.
does.
So I think it's easier, for them to have that buy-in when you have, 8, 9 WPC worlds?
Yeah, I have 8 WPC. Yeah, I
Yeah.
got other ones, but
Yeah. For those that don't know, the WPC is the harder one,
Right.
to achieve. Some of the other ones you were one maybe 2 countries,
Right.
So it diluted.
Yeah, it diluted pretty
a
bad.
bit. I guess this kind of goes for both you guys, because there's a lot of questions kind of just around this one issue. Is, I don't want to say how do you get stronger, but it's how do you progress when you're trying to stay within the same weight range, right? So yes, you have a weight class. Yes, there's going to be fluctuations. With that though, I think sometimes people forget that fluctuation, even if it is 132, 148 or whatever it is, it's not what people think. They think that you're like living at this 132. I mean, you know what I'm saying? There's weight cuts, which we'll talk about all that, but there still is, like, I would say a 20-pound, correct me if I'm wrong, fluctuation plus or minus, for whatever that is, it just tightens up. But you're still limited, which what I've seen with, Brian Schwab's a good example because of a long career. You keep pushing, you keep staying in one weight class. You can only really do it for so long because your lean body mass gets so high, you don't have the body fat, and that's when things get really, I call it kind of crumbly. The progress is really hard to make. You can't really add any more muscle because you can't get any leaner than what you really are. And there's that, well, you guys both know that time you just have to go up, but there's a big time between when you have to go up. So when you're trying to manage that weight class, do you pull back on the higher repetition work, the hypertrophy work? How do you go about trying to manage that weight class but still progress in that class without, the easy route is just keep gaining weight, like Louie would say, just, keep gaining weight, and then when you don't make progress, drop a class.
Bulk up or shut up.
Yeah, exactly. So.
You want to go first on that one?
Yeah, sure. I'll kind of handle that from my perspective. So for me, obviously with powerlifting, I think they have, a lot of people have it backwards. A lot of it's joint, ligament, and tendon strength. And so for me, it's all about finding ways to build those things. How are you going to build your tendons? How are you going to build as much as you can around the joints as possible? And by doing so, you can keep your weight down fairly well. If you look at a lot of the big guys, go back to the history, look at a lot of the little guys, there's a ton of them. I could use a million different examples. Doug's a great example. Monster shoulders, the hips were always stable. Pretty much look at every joint orifice around every joint. The tendons, they're massive. They're extremely lean, cut in, especially the older guys. You go to Joe Bradley, Vincent, keep going down the list of these guys. Their joints were huge. So that's kind of where I focused my side of things. If you're going to do rep work, you're building everything around the joints and like single joint exercises. And then the other thing you can always do to increase is nervous system. Try to build your neural capacity as best you can. And that's, I guess, in my case, you're going to cut back the hypertrophy work a little bit. It's not going to be nearly as much. But you still do, and we always did, we'd call them conditioning cycles, which is basically nothing but hypertrophy blocks. But it's typically right after a meet, just like we still do. You cut in, do a hypertrophy block, take the bar off your back a little bit, and that allows flush everything out and then keep on going. There is that ceiling, and I'm kind of getting there now. I'm starting to push those thresholds a little bit where, every 5 pounds matters. But you are working, like my training weight this cycle was somewhere between, 174 and 180. I pretty much stayed in between, flexed up and down. Depends, working outside, I'm going to lose a good chunk of water during the day, but that was pretty typical for me. So cutting 10, 15 pounds isn't that big of a deal. To me, that's not a huge cut because, when I was cutting to 48, I was about the same body weight. We were sitting somewhere between 66 to 75 and cutting down to 48. That's a whole different ballgame, and that's when I made the decision, even though I'm the most natural 148 ever.
I've ever seen.
Yeah.
Sugar Ray Leonard.
It was one of those things where I made the decision to go up to 65 just because the cuts kept getting harder. It got to the point, the first cut was like, okay, this sucks, but I think I can do this. And then it just kept getting harder and harder and harder and harder to get down because, like you said, I started running out of body fat to be able to peel off. And when you're making the pure water cuts, which I'll let him talk on, it definitely drains you. When you look like you're a heroin addict, you look absolutely atrocious from how drained you are, and you're cramping left and right just sitting down. That was the indicator for me, like, okay, this is time for me to go up because the meat suffered, the number suffered. That's when I made the decision to move up a class, was simply because the cuts were just getting too brutal and it was too much of a percent. I mean, I was cutting anywhere between 12 and 14% body mass just to get down, and that was where you kind of get in the danger zone.
What about yourself?
Well, Jimmy Seitzer, one time explained, and I know I said this on the last podcast, I apologize, but this is where it came from. I hope I get this right. He said most people have a 1-to-1 ratio, like you were talking about. So you get bigger, you get stronger. 1-to-1. And he said I had a 1-to-0, which was a blessing, you know, for the sport. I could get stronger without getting any bigger. My genetics, well, first of all, you know, Adam looks like a basketball player next to me. You know what I mean? As short as I am. So, and I just couldn't get big enough. I usually weighed 52 and went down to 32. Wasn't any fun, but there was nobody back then, Dave. Even when we had 24-hour weigh-ins, there was nobody that I talked to, not one guy that was good. You know, the Bob Wall and Jim Finch and, you know, on and on and on, all the top 48s and Torrens and the other guys. I'm always going to forget somebody, I'm sorry.
Yeah.
But nobody didn't weigh over 160. They all did, every one of them. And I had never even got close to that. So there wasn't any really reason for me. Now, what he was describing when I was 114, I grew out of that. And I was a decent 114. I really was. I was pretty good. And then I became the world's worst 123. You know, and it was just terrible class for me. Went to 32. For the first time, I was getting bigger, a 1-to-1 type of deal.
Yeah.
But I couldn't get past 152. When I went up to 148, I knew what I had to get to. I just stopped at 157. I mean, I just couldn't get any heavier than that without just caking it up. So at 150, and I was okay at 48. I was all right. But for me, we just did the two things. There was a power, you know, you had 3 meets a year, power cycle, conditioning cycle. And we didn't have, and during the conditioning cycle, for whatever reason, it wasn't unusual for me to be a little bit heavier. I don't know why. Just doing whatever I was doing, more reps. I don't know what the hell. But I might get a little bit heavier towards the end of the power cycle, even before I started my drop, you know, when the reps are really coming down and stuff. I wasn't the only one. Brett did that. Brett Stager that I told you about, every time. Brett was always going to be a full 275, never was close. He'd be in the 260s, but he would start, he was the first one I noticed, would lose some weight getting ready for a meet. So I didn't lose a lot, but I would pull back and everything. But and Adam's right. I mean, I looked like he was describing. I looked bad and stuff, but it was just part of the deal. Because if you think about it, the first class is 114. You got 9 pounds to 23, 9 pounds to 32. 32 to 48 is the first 16. It's a 16 and a half pound jump. That's a lot for a little guy. That's a ton. So had it been another 9, I would have progressed into that.
Yeah.
I wasn't trying to hide from anybody. I mean, my God, Lamar Gant was a 132. You know what I mean? If you're gonna hide, I should have been eating cake, you know.
Yeah.
But you know, so that's the way that went. I did that. Is that a?
No, I mean, it's I agree, because before I came to Westside, I was training more linear in that approach. It was the same thing, you know. So I would most of the time, like, weight classes were 242, and I would kind of come in off of that conditioning period, like 255, 252. Never had to worry about cutting weight, because as the the reps drop and the weight goes up, the accessories come out a little bit. Maybe I become a little more cognitive on what I'm eating compared to before, but never had to worry about it. It just kind of came right down into that. And I think some of it is, like I said, I think it's the two things. You pull some of that higher rep stuff out, it becomes more focused, so your volume drops.
Sure.
But I also think subconsciously we're all like, you know, maybe I ought to just not eat that. You know, it's because you know what's coming.
Oh, yeah.
And the final drop, I mean, for you guys was radical. For me, it was not a big deal.
Yeah.
But it's still, for me, 5 pounds sucked, you know, so it was, you know what I'm saying? So I'm like, if I can make it so it's just 5 pounds, I'm sorry, 10 pounds sucked. If I can make it so it's just 5 pounds, I can like sweat that and shit that and I'm done. Yeah. You know, 10, 15 pounds, like, oh, this is going to fuck up my, you know, so I think some of it was with that. I want to kind of go through, because a lot of the questions that, you know, Adam may get there, I get now, it's all kind of like gear related, right? So I'm going to go way back because you started way before me, right? So
76
yeah,
was my
so
first
when
meet.
your first meet, when you were started, I kind of just made a list of some of the things that evolved over a period of time. So your first meet, you're using like squat stands, you know, wooden platforms, and the squat stands a lot of times had frickin' tires for the base, so you kind of had to walk out, you know, around the tire, and then kind of step out, and then some of the first real changes that I can remember, there may be some that you'll remember before this, were going from, you know, a round system, you know, to flights, you know, where people who don't know the history of the sport don't understand, you know, the weight, the bar would be loaded and then the weight never came down, you know, so me just getting into the sport, I followed myself a lot because I sucked. Where, you know, I remember Matt Dimmel following himself a lot on the squat.
Yeah,
because it was so high. Yeah. You know, so that was a big pivot to be able to go, because actually it changed strategy too. Because sometimes you had to like pick your weights a little different, or if you had a bigger team, like you blacks, you got the black shirt, you might stick somebody in there that may not even be training for the meet, but it just provides a little bit of rest, you know, to go in there. Yep. So when that hit, or that change hit, I was so young, I didn't know anything. You know, I just, whatever. It's like, this is weird now. I got to wait 20 minutes. Like, what the fuck? How do I train for that? Yeah. Do I need to train with 20-minute rest periods? From the higher end competitor side, what was the narrative between all you guys? Did you think that was a good change? Did you think it was a bad change? Did some people think this is bullshit? Because my world, I mean, think about it. If you're a lighter guy, you're closer to following yourself.
Yeah.
So it's like, this is bullshit, because now, you know, anybody who breaks my record doesn't have to do it within 10 minutes.
Right.
They get 20-minute rest.
I can only speak for myself because again, I was, and I don't want to mislead anybody. You know my history, but I didn't leave Westside because it wasn't Westside. I left Louie's house.
No, I get it. Yeah.
In his gym. So I was in my little cocoon, as you call it, and that was spot on.
Yeah, I mean, but when you're still competing with the other
competitors. When I see guys, we didn't kibitz, you know. It's not like everybody hated each other.
Yeah, yeah.
But, man, everybody was from all around, didn't know everybody. So from my perspective, it was really great.
Okay.
For me.
Yeah.
Because I don't know if he got this from me, but I'm liable to take 20 minutes telling a story
in between. That's what I'm saying.
So I was used to that, and it did cut out having to fight because you had 1 minute. If you followed yourself, you had 3. Yeah. Well, the 3 went pretty quick.
They did. I mean, I was a teen at the time.
You were a teen.
I was following myself a lot.
Yeah.
You know?
The 1 minute thing, unless it was a big meet or that somebody was mad at you, they'd give you a little bit, you know, usually a little bit. So 1 minute really was like a minute and a half or something. You know, they're loading the bar and farting around and all that. But the 3 minutes was 3 minutes. Yeah. Because there was no change.
Exactly.
No weight change.
Well, sometimes it would be more, because if there's 4 people, you know, between your attempt, say you picked an even number, 500. Yeah. Like everybody wants 500. So I would think, okay, 505. Okay. You know, so I'm going to go from that 450, which everybody's going to take. Yeah. I'd make it 455, so I get all the rest of the people that are doing 400. You see what I'm saying? Yeah, I do. And then everybody wants to do 500. I want to go 505. That way I get more rest. Okay. You know, so instead of that 3 minutes, I can get 10. Yeah. 8, you know, whatever it's going to be. Yeah. So it's a little there. That's the strategy that kind of played into it.
Yeah. The round system for me personally was great.
Yeah.
And it didn't take much getting used to be honest with you. And then you knew where you were at.
Yeah.
And you had to figure out.
That was the best thing is you knew where you always were going to almost kind of follow the same guy.
And at the good meets, not to be a dick here,
Yeah, I
but
get it.
at the good meets, you knew those guys.
Yeah.
You know, you knew them.
Yeah.
So, hey, you're going to be going after, I'll say a name and then I'll get called later.
Yeah.
You know, Dominic Sardo or, or before. Well, I know who he is.
Yeah.
You know, I know who those guys are. When I'm going helping these guys, when I was helping these guys, I mean, they don't even, a lot of times they don't even know. So now you're trying to figure out which guy's that, who's rapping.
Yeah, yeah.
But yeah, the round system for me was really, really helpful.
Yeah, yeah. The
I
other
liked
thing, I liked it as well, but I only had a couple years before that whole thing happened. But it was a huge change to the sport. It's kind of what I'm saying. It was a big change to the sport.
Yeah.
Which definitely helped the top end. You know, the big squatters.
Yes, it did.
Definitely helped them a lot because they got a little more rest. Right about that same time though is when they went from same day weigh-ins, which could have been 2 hours, it's whatever it was, to 24 hours.
Right.
You know, that was a big one though too.
Huge.
You know, so how you see what I'm saying? So how big of a change was, just in your personal opinion, I'm sure you liked that idea as well, right? Because you were making bigger cuts.
The 2 hour weigh-ins, your body had this fight back mechanism, and I don't know the technical terms because I'm dumb, but there's a fight back mechanism that you'd be really surprised. So I'm wearing the Blacks t-shirt. That's what Louie and I lifted for Blacks, as you know.
Yeah.
Okay. John and I were making weight at a meet that was a real big breakthrough for me. I had to qualify for the senior nationals, and I had managed to crap down my leg at the Y Nationals and bomb out. It's a long story. So I had to go up to a Lake Erie district meet up in Cleveland, and John was lifting up there. We needed a qualifying total for the seniors because you didn't just pay your money back then. No,
I know.
Yeah. So you had to qualify.
It took me years.
Yeah. Now you'd be fine.
Yeah. That's
Dave Tate sent his check in. Well,
that's bullshit. But anyway.
So John and I were in the sauna. Everybody, we were the only two in the sauna. Okay. He's trying to get to 98. I'm trying to get to 32. And they stick their head in. You got 1 minute or 2 minutes or whatever. So we crawl out and step on the scale. And I made 32 and he made 98 on the button. And that meet started, now it wasn't 2 hours.
Yeah.
The weigh-in started, it was 2 hours.
Yes.
So I'm drinking, well, you'd be surprised. He and I both had our best meets ever that day. They gave out 2 best lifters. I got the light, he got the heavy. That's just where they broke it. And we both made our qualifiers, but it was a big breakthrough for me. And, but when there was a 2 hour weigh-in, Dave, and when you were dropping a lot of weight, there was a lot of this going on. You could have a great day or not a great day. That can happen now too, but it was kind of weird. But when you had a really good day, you did have to go, man, how did I drop 20 pounds? And had 6 minutes before I had to start warming up. Of course, I was not the first one, but pretty early.
Yeah.
And then some doctor, well, your body kind of fights back for a while. And it's kind of true.
Yeah.
It is true. Now, the 24-hour weigh-in, that's when people got into rehydrating and it became a science. And he's fantastic at it. I was not. I made weight, but I did it wrong. If I'd have, this is me telling a story on my front porch as an old guy again, but if I had done what he did and I was told how to do that, I would have been better. And I really would have. I'd have been a lot better, but I was too nervous and retarded. But yeah, that was a huge difference, and I know you'll have it on your list. There was another thing coming because you mentioned the squat stands.
Yeah, the squat stands, but even before that, bench shirts came in. So we had crappy squat suits, right?
Yeah.
And the squat suits helped a little bit, but
wow.
a lot of them tore out in the bottom, which was always
yeah.
which was fun, kind of fun to watch. But there wasn't much of a carryover.
No.
And it helped some. And then the first bench shirts came out. I don't want to say it was a huge carryover, but it was still 20 pounds, 15.
Yeah.
For me, it wasn't enough to deal with the bullshit that had to go around with it.
Yeah.
But it did. I mean, when you add the squat suits and the bench shirts, right, you're adding 50 pounds, to the total just off of those two, maybe a little bit more.
Yeah.
And then, like, were people bitching about that?
About
the bench shirts coming in.
Well, when they first came in, I somehow, I guess because I was in that, what'd you call it, the bubble?
Yes.
Yeah, I was in the bubble. And so I managed not to know that they were around.
Yeah, I was
and
the same way.
it was unbelievable. And then when I found out, I had the same kind of thought process that you did. I didn't have any money back then.
Yeah,
I mean, I really didn't.
Yeah.
And Laura died. God bless her heart. She let me use her bench shirt. So otherwise, and I used her shirt. If you blow it out, you got to buy it. I will. I'll buy it. I didn't have any money. But I didn't blow it out. And so I used hers for a while. But there wasn't. I didn't get a whole lot like you're saying.
Yeah.
And then I finally saved my money and I got one, But yeah, even the early bench shirts, they didn't hold up very well. The early squat suits didn't hold up because if you were trying to get anything, and I got Louie helping me, so he's going to figure that out, and he did. So sure, you could buy a squat suit that would last you forever, but it wasn't going to give you anything at all. So you'd have those little blowouts and stuff.
Bench shirts blowing out as well.
Bench shirts blew out for a long time. They don't now. So, I think that was, guys, I think most of the guys, as I recall, all of the guys, when you got to good meets, had them right away.
Yeah, I don't think anybody was really bitching about it because I think it was more like, this is going to help because my shoulder's a little fucked up.
Yeah, sure.
It might help with, pec tears. If you had a pec tear, maybe it'll help there. I tend to think it might have created more pec tears, the way it was digging in.
Yes.
And the way that there's fewer pec tears today.
Sure.
Because the bench shirts are flatter, where the raw guys aren't tearing pecs the way that those first iterations of bench shirt guys were. Right. And now when we get to the Monolift, like you were talking about, I didn't know shit about that until Westside. When I came to Westside through the commercial Dimmers gym and then Boxer in the basement gym, and then Dimmers, we were there a couple of years before Louie got one. Okay. The only reason he got one is because we had it in the meet. I liked it. The reason I liked it is going to be different than what people think. I liked it because, Westside, you're going back and forth with speed sets. And Louie's my training partner. He's like 5'2", or whatever he is, right? And we're not allowed to change the jack height. I'm like, I'm doing a good morning getting it out, and I'm bitching about it. And he's saying my back's weak. That's why I'm bitching about it. And I'm like, this is bullshit. So the Monolift, I was like, this is a godsend because now I can actually set it, where because I would go to a meet and wouldn't even know where my rack height was supposed to be, because I'm squatting off a junior rack height, but I embraced it, because it's like, okay, but there was a learning curve. Oh yeah. Because now you're taking a walkout, which you had to master that, which is a skill in itself, especially when you go from these big tires. And then it cleans up a little bit, but it was still 4 steps. There was no way to get around 4 steps. Now with like the combo racks and that they have it, you can do it in 2. So it's not even close to the same walkout. It used to be where sometimes y'all hear people say, well, you want the walkout because that's how it used to be. I'm like, dude, no. This is not a walkout like what it used to be. Not like we. If you want to compare it, then put a tire around the bottom of your jacks and then see what's going on. Sure. But that was the next one. But that definitely had an impact once people learned it. Squat records started to be broke. Like that. Like left and right because now they can get more stable.
Yeah, you were very fortunate, like you said, because Lou got one. The bubble didn't have one for forever. And I would see people, and I wasn't the only one that didn't have one.
Yeah. No, there's a lot that didn't.
Correct. But what some of them did, maybe they were smarter than me. You don't have to give me that look.
Yeah.
But maybe they were. But they would walk it out even with a monolift. Did you see that?
Yes,
Okay.
yes.
So they would just say, well, I'm not going to mess with this.
Well, and when I have lifters out here that compete in those federations,
Oh, yeah.
you know, I tell them, do not use the monolift.
No, and
yes.
so guys would walk it out still, but nothing was in your way, so it was an easier walkout. But I tried to use it, and that learning curve you talk about, oh my goodness, I'd stand up and they'd flip that thing. I mean, I'm all over the place.
Yeah.
But then the bubble finally got one.
Yeah.
You know, and that sure made a big difference.
Yeah.
Like you said, squat records are.
Yeah. So, I mean, as I was writing these down, I'm kind of looking at it, and I'm like, you know, over this decade or 15 years or whatever it was, a person of the same strength, just by utilizing the monolift, you know, or the combo racks today, a smaller walkout, you know, and the suits really didn't change all that much at this point.
Right.
You know, they're still kind of the same, but just from changing that system, changing the weigh-ins, changing to that monolift, that could be 150, 200 pounds more on somebody's total.
Yeah.
That's the strength, the same strength, just by using these other tools.
Sure.
You know, so this evolution, you know, through powerlifting and through all these different means, you know, started way back. What I'm trying to see is at some point in time, there's this point, you know, where a lot of lifters were like, okay, that's enough. Oh, it's gone too far. You know, that's kind of like walking through these roads here, right? Because now, once we get through that, now the suits started to get a little better. You know, like the France double poly suit, squat suits. Yeah. They quit blowing out, which was a really good thing.
Yeah.
You know, they started to definitely get better.
Yeah, you could have.
Fan shirts got a little better. You started to get up in that 40 to 60 pound carryover. Not really 100, but definitely double what it was. Deadlift suits even came in. I'm not going to sit here and say they added a lot, but 10, 15, 20, maybe 20 pounds. That front wedgie, you know, would just like kill your ass.
Right.
But that gear, it kept evolving there for a while before we hit, you know, the canvas. Once you hit even the denim bench shirts, when they hit, that was another big jump, but it was also a huge pain in the ass.
Oh yeah.
Because that learning curve on those was way different than the polys beforehand. Right. The polys beforehand, you just suffer through the pain and it would come down. Yeah. It might tear your pec in half, but it would come down. Right. That denim was a whole nother, you know, that was a whole other ball game of trying to get that. The skills started to come in, but then the canvas, you know, would come in there, and that whole iteration, that lasted, I don't know how long. Like yourself, I'm not really good on time, but 5 years, something like that. That also had a big increase with that, you know, jumping through there. Then I would say the next iteration was adjustable heavy duty suits, like like the canvas now has Velcro legs, you know, or Velcro straps, or the shoestring, you know, what do they call that? The
Leviathan Ultra Pro.
Leviathan. But when that started to become adjustable, you know, then it became more carryover, because you didn't have to send it back and forth 800 times to be able to get something customized the way that you want it customized, right? And the bench shirt scoop just got a little bit better, you know, so that kept moving through there. That, I think at that point is when people started to say, no, wait a minute, you know, this might be going a little bit too far, right? Where when I look back, this is where I kind of like have this conflict with myself. When I look back, I'm like, well, how much more did it really add? Like 100, you know, 200 pounds, because all the shit that happened 15 years before that added the same amount. But, you know, at what point you get, and now we're in this weird stage where, I mean, multiply is not as popular, obviously, but now they say that band shirt comes out, and then the numbers are going up, you know, even more. And, you know, part of me says, well, it's just another iteration, you know, of those numbers going up, which, it's already, you see what I'm saying? There's a history of all that, you know, and it's where's that tipping point? You know, that's why I'm bringing all this up, because you got a longer history in it. So your opinion's going to mean more.
Yeah, I can tell you, old guy talking.
Yeah, that's fine though.
Old man talking.
It's experience, you know.
I remember when I first started, and for a while, long while, unless you were a freak of some kind, everybody's deadlift was the highest. It was their best lift. I mean, It just was.
Close, really close.
Yeah, it was. I mean, it was certainly mine, and then, like you're saying, all of a sudden the suits get better and the Monolift and all of that. And
deadlift didn't change. Well, the deadlift bar. I mean,
we didn't have.
changed,
Yeah.
That adds some, but not like. And there was a kind. It now might be adding more.
Yeah.
You know, with the different bars.
Yeah.
But you got a good point. I see where you're going.
So, the deadlift was, the big thing, and then the squat became the big thing.
Yes.
I believe, and you would know. No, I do know this. God, obviously Waddington was first one to put squat 1,000. Nobody had deadlifted that. I saw Gary Heisey pull. I don't want to shortchange him.
It was
I think it was like 920.
Yeah, it was something.
But that was way after David. had
Yeah,
done that.
yeah.
So now the squat was the biggest number,
Yes.
and now old crippled man in the bubble, right?
Well, even in unlimited powerlifting, the squat or the bench is now the biggest
Yeah, well,
number,
that's where I was going.
Yeah.
Then they let me know that now the bench is the
biggest
heaviest
number.
lift of all
Yeah,
time,
yeah.
which I, of course, immediately called Rick Weil.
Yeah.
Because Rick's in more of a bubble than I am. He doesn't care.
Yeah.
And I go, hey, man, just wanted you to know the biggest lift ever in history is a bench press. He just lost his mind. He doesn't care.
I know. It's just table talk
he,
shit, right?
But
So-
he just lost his mind. I said, and I've told him, I said, that tapped me out a little bit. And I don't mean to be that guy, but because I don't have one.
Yeah.
I can't. It wouldn't matter if I did have one now, but when there's people out there, people are losing records. Jason Coker, right? I think Coker.
Yeah.
Coker lost a record to one of those, and he finally went on and said some stuff on social media and go crazy. But
But at the same time, he broke a record of somebody that was using a shirt that performed way less than him. You see this this conflicting back and forth. It's just weird.
It is really weird.
But I'll tell you what Brian Carroll told me, which I didn't really think about because I always just thought of this evolution thing. To get a lot out of the shirts that Coker was using and stuff like that.
Yeah.
It might take you 2 years to figure that shit out.
Oh, sure.
Because there's a skill that's just ungodly with that. Where the learning curve, of those other ones, it's still a learning curve, but it's nowhere near as long. It's not 2 years. It might be shorter, so there's that. Again, I don't really know where my opinion is on the whole thing. It's as long as it's, I don't know. It's just a weird, I'm saying? It's just a weird thing. You're in it right now. So, what's kind of, where do your thoughts? Should it be separate? Should it be asterisks? Should it just be embraced and say, fuck it? Because the other thing that I've seen change in the multiply is the squat depth.
Yes.
And I don't, again, like yourself, I don't want to be that guy. Because I've had squats passed that shouldn't have been passed, but not like what I'm seeing. No. But when I say that, I pause because I'm sure there were people that were saying the same shit about mine,
they were about mine.
Yeah,
I can tell you that.
You see what I'm saying?
Oh,
So it's a weird conversation, but it's kind of a fun one to have. So go ahead.
No, I think it should be a different class. Pretty simple in my mind. It should be an unlimited class, and if guys want to wear 6-ply squat suits, let them do it because they're coming out in these band shirts. They are typically the bigger benchers are 4, 5, 6, 7-ply band shirts. I don't think there's any problem with it. I just don't think you can compare it to multiply because if you look in the WPC rule book, multiply is only up to 2-ply or technically, and their rule book is the double ply. It's like the suits are technically double ply canvases, and the majority of the shirts are double ply shirts. There are triple ply shirts out there, but I think that should be the standard. Like the multiply should be just that. It should be keep it separate, and I think that's how you keep it fair, and then people can make that choice to go to the unlimited, the multiply, and single ply. Just make it another subcategory. Why not? You've already got 52 different subcategories.
Yeah. I mean, what I used to think with the gear, like I didn't really give a shit how many layers, because if the judging is if the judging is solid, right, you can put on 4 layers of a squat suit. You ain't breaking parallel.
Yep.
Yeah. I mean, now if they let it go, 8 inches above parallel, yeah. But I think even today with all the gear that they have, if they put them in there, to me, parallel, to me, parallel is the hip joint to the knee. I don't like that crease thing. because it kind of robs, really skinny guys, and it kind of robs really, really, really big, super heavyweights. Because how in the hell are they ever going to? We used to have this guy named Tilt, that was at Westside. He was bigger than hell, just giant. I had him one time sit on a Pepsi can, and it's if I was to judge based upon the crease, he would not have passed.
Right.
His ass could have hit the floor and it still wouldn't have broke. So there's always, those in there where I think that in the bench shirt's the same way. You could put on tons and tons of layers, but you're not going to touch.
Sure.
But this changes that, right?
Does.
Because it spreads a little different.
I always go back to the reason why, right? So bench shirts were developed for that reason. They were bench shirts, right? They're there to build the bench, protect the shoulders. That's what they were made for. This item in particular with the band shirt, it wasn't developed that way. It was meant to be a training aid, and that's what it really was made for, that developed into a subcategory. That's where I have the only issue with it, because you got to go back to once again, it wasn't built to even be made to be a subcategory. It wasn't made to ever be used in a meet. It kind of got thrown in there because they modified it, so on and so forth. I always like to go back to the reason why, because in my opinion, anything in life, that's usually the most important, the reason why. And it was made as a training aid. And so if you do want to use it in competition and want to go down that route, then yeah, I definitely think you have to subcategorize it, because it wasn't initially intended to be used in a competition bench press, and it wasn't made for that reason. Now they've modified it and turned it into that, which is fine. I don't have any problem with people using it, but I don't think it should be held under the same classifications of like a multiply bench, because if you're in like a poly shirt and you're benching in a poly or a denim, and all the guys that have done it for the last 20 plus years in polys and denims, I don't think you can put that in the same category.
Yeah, I'm all for that. I mean, you'll like this. I think they should have, a high safety squat bar,
Okay.
Box, like high box safety squat bar.
Yes.
Right.
Yes.
A 1 or 2 board press.
Yes.
And deadlifting off boxes.
Certainly.
Just for washed up meatheads like us, because we can do all that shit.
We can do that.
Sure.
Right? That should be like its own thing
I'm
as well.
still in.
Why are we not done this yet?
Well, I'm kind of doing it,
Yeah.
but so now to pivot off of this, there's one question that I always get this question, and it came back to you, but I'm going to kind of tie it into one overall question because it goes both ways. Is how did you manage your training with shift work? As working in the fire department. Then for you, it's going to be when you have a labor job, a very high labor job. Yes, yours was a high labor job too, but the shift is the shift is what people have the hardest time with.
The fire department.
The fire department shift.
Okay.
Like, how did you manage your training then? Then I'm going to go to Adam with how do you manage it when it's labor intensive all day long. So
okay, just real quick.
Yeah.
Just let me just say one thing.
Yeah.
A guy came into the bubble.
Yeah.
Which is what I've renamed the gym, and
Yeah.
I like that. Thank you for that, because it is. Guy came into the bubble, and we were discussing the band shirt.
yeah,
And he said, what Adam said, he goes, well, there's an unlimited category. I said, oh, really? He goes, yeah. You'll get your record, a record back. If somebody broke your record, or Jason will get his record, whatever. I said, okay. So I waited about a month, and I went on and checked. Went on the little website thing and checked. It wasn't changed.
well, no, that's just them. I mean, that's
Yeah.
you
So
know, yeah.
that sticks in me a little
Yeah,
bit because it's a different thing. With shift work with the fire department, some guys try to train at the station. Some do because they're all set on Monday, Wednesday, Friday, whatever it might be.
Yeah.
I got some advice, good advice, from an old head when I first started. I mean, he knew what I did, but he says, "Man, don't try to lift here. Don't try to lift on duty."
Yeah.
And I didn't. So I just laid it out in a 3-week grid. I happened to have training partners that were very flexible and adaptable. So when we used to go Monday, Tuesday, Thursday, Friday, that was no longer going to be, because there might be a Monday I'm at the engine house and it's 24 hours. So it's really easy if you can see it. I didn't bring it. I didn't think to, but it's just a 3-week grid, and then you just plug in, here's the days off.
Yeah.
So I work on Monday, I'm off Tuesday and Wednesday. And in that 3-week grid, in Columbus, you have a Kelly day. Kelly Day is to balance out the hours so they don't have to pay you overtime is what they tell me. I don't know.
Yeah.
So, when you start out, you get a Tuesday or a Thursday or some shit. And then when you've been there forever, you'll have a Saturday. But, so I always just, okay, here's my Kelly Day. So that's going to be a squat day.
Yeah.
Or whatever the most important day is to you.
Yeah.
That's going to be that. And then I build off of it. And so.
How's the Kelly Day different than the other days? Is it just guaranteed?
My unit day. So, in a 3-week span, you're only going to work one Monday out of 3. Your unit. 1 Tuesday, 1 Wednesday. Okay. So say you have a Monday Kelly Day, for instance. You won't work it if it's your Kelly Day. That's yours that's off. Your crew's there, but you're not.
I get you.
So that's how I built that day. So that's the first day. That's the squat. And then you just build everything off of it. And it's really pretty easy.
Yeah.
Like I said, if it's, but you have to have some flexible people, that aren't, and I really did.
I like what you just said because it reminded, because I've had this conversation with other people, is they lay the squat out first. Like first they lay out what days they have on and off, then they plug the squat in.
Right.
Because it's the hardest to recover from, and it's when you need spotters for, and there's other variables like the bench, the deadlift, whatever. You can do that anywhere, right? But
sure.
But it just clicked when you said that everybody that I've ever asked this to, that's the one variable that's always been the same.
Sure.
Other ones are, I need a day after the day off, and that's all irrelevant, not relevant to me, right?
Yeah.
It's just being consistent with whatever that is. Now with the labor part, so you're on your feet, 20,000 steps a day or something in the sun, and all that. So how do you go about managing that?
So that's a little bit different because for me, I do work 5.5, 6 days a week, whatever you want to call it. The big thing's recovery and taking advantage of everything you can to do to recover. So I do a lot more recovery modalities probably than most people. Sleep when I can, which isn't much, and it's a challenge there. But from if you're out digging ditches all day, if you've never done that, you should try it sometime. And then you got to come in at night and train. So like out here, I work during the week. Typically I'd be at work now. You're sitting one of those things where you're out in the hot sun all day, you're digging ditches, you're doing whatever, doing some type of labor-intensive job. You have to really auto-regulate when you come into the gym. So you got to know when to push, what to push on, because you can blow something off real fast. And I have gotten hurt a couple of times doing that. Coming in on a squat day, I have to work Saturday mornings. It's what it is. You come in, you've already walked, you're 12,000 steps deep because I had to mow a greens loop and do this, that, and the other. You've got to know you're going to have to back off. It's just what it is. Or take more time, the bigger rest periods, give yourself a back off the number of reps or the number of sets, either way. Take the volume down on those days where you're fried. That comes in big into the auto-regulation, I think, and knowing how you feel. But sometimes you might feel good. Like Saturday mornings, I go to work, it wakes me up, I come into the gym, I'm good to go. The only problem is you got to think about how much energy you've already exerted throughout the morning, and in my opinion, you're at a way, way higher potential for injury when you start pushing that 90% threshold. So for me, on those days where I'm pushing that 90% threshold, I know I've either got to take that day off, or I'm going to have to modify what I'm doing at work, find a way to stay out of the sun, to stay out of what I need to do in order to be able to train at that capacity. So knowing what you have coming up is going to allow me to plan for ahead of the time at work. But if you can't help it and you're stuck out, whatever, doing asphalt or doing concrete, those type of jobs are tough. I've done a lot of asphalt and concrete between this winter and this spring, tons, literal tons. And the biggest thing I knew was either do it on a day that I wasn't training, or if I had to train that night, then those days are going to be tapered, and you're going to have to find a way to maximize what you can out of that training session without tearing yourself up. It just becomes I call it a feel thing. Auto-regulation, it's a feel thing. You got to know when to push and when to pull back. And sometimes those nights you've got to pull back as much as you might want to push. Pushing is typically not the right answer after you've been out working a 16-hour day in the sun. It's not going to work. That's just setting yourself up for failure at that point. So,
and I also think that people, the only way to really learn that
is to do it.
Is they have to do it.
Yeah.
So the people asking the questions, a lot of the times I want to say you're going to know when you overdo it, but the problem is you get stuck in that mindset. You still think you have to do it.
Sure.
So, I think what you're saying is don't get stuck in that mindset. Be smart about it.
Correct.
Dial it back.
Oh, and with that, what you just said, you do have to go through it though.
Yeah.
If a lot of what we try to do through educating is keep people from making those same mistakes. I think that's one of those things that you have to push yourself to that threshold, just like what you do with the Train Your Ass Off, teaching people how to push themselves to that next level. It's the same kind of thing. You don't really understand what that is until you've been there and know what that feels like. Because how are you supposed to know how hard to push yourself on a day where you've worked like that if you've never done that before and actually push yourself to that breaking point? Now, I'm not saying go blow a hamstring off or anything like that, but get to the point where you're fried for 3 days.
Oh yeah, and you're going to know your training sucks.
Exactly.
I mean,
It's going to be
I'm
real
sure
apparent.
even when you were in the department, you knew. If you had a
Working
work
fire.
day where you're just busting ass all day,
Yeah.
and you're like, you know what, I got to do this.
Yeah.
You can only do that so many times. Well, you kept probably doing it, but you can only do it so many times where you're like, maybe I need to back it down, a little bit.
Yeah.
When thinking of meets, right? So what are some of the funniest things that you've seen happen in a meet or in meets that you've done, dude? Just crazy ass shit that you've seen. I mean, I can pull up. Actually, I can be more specific here. I could actually just randomly pick, because you got like 100 meets on here. When I go through here, there's like a ton of meets on here. What's some of the craziest shit that you've seen? Not lift wise, just funny, stupid things. You don't need to mention anybody's name.
Well, that's I suppose one of it was kind of funny. It wasn't funny for the person that was involved.
It never is.
But the police showed up at a meet and came in the back door and arrested somebody, and who was in the meet.
Mm-hmm.
And then he wasn't in the meet.
Yeah. Did they let him finish the lift?
Yeah, that was kind of odd.
Yes.
You're looking around going,
Yeah.
hey, there was somebody that was following me. Yeah, he's in jail now.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, okay. I think I told this story last time. I sure hate to repeat it, but Louie's reaction, was the funny part. Bay St. Louis, Mississippi, 1979, Senior Nationals. Louie was done. Man, I don't know if that's when he meltdown in Mississippi. It might have been when he tore his bicep. I don't know, but I should know. It may have been. But one of the things that was crazy was Chip McCain was a shaker. He shaked, there's some guys that just do.
Mm-hmm.
And so he shook a lot and everything, but everybody knew how good he was. And he came out and he took something and it didn't go well. It just didn't go well at all. And Lou was already done. So he's sitting next to me, and back then, 79, the weight just went up on the bar, like we discussed earlier.
Yeah.
So it had been a while. Louie, Chip must be out of the meet. He must be done. And all of a sudden, they call his name, and it was a world record.
Uh-huh.
He's already missed his opener bad.
Mm-hmm.
And this is whatever more. A lot more. And we're sitting in the stands now, so we're not within earshot necessarily.
Mm-hmm.
But Louie, and he's looking around, and he's like, they better back up the medic. Better have the medic ready,
Yeah.
And he comes out, and he's got, like, crap shoved in his nose, not because he's not ammonia capsules.
Yeah.
He's bleeding.
Yeah.
And Lou's always got something for everything,
Mm-hmm.
This is the first time I ever witnessed this. So Chip comes out, and we walked him out back then.
Mm-hmm.
So, the shit, it's out of his nose by now, and he's bleeding on himself and shaking like a leaf and everything else. And he goes down, and Louie's trying to, he's backing the medic in, kind of helping him. You're going to be right here, And he just goes, I can't even move my arm as fast as he squatted that squat. And I look over at Lou, nothing. He's just like, But everybody was, instead of,
Yeah.
it just went silent. It just went silent. And so that was just his reaction. Was funny. There was a guy that after the Lincoln, Nebraska, Junior Nationals, Lincoln, Nebraska, 70 whatever, something, 70 something. He's Lincoln, Nebraska shuts down during the weekends. We found that out. It's in Lou's book. He made the comment about riding in the thing and asking the cabbie where everybody was. And he said at the beach, at the lake.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, he's not lying. There was nobody in town, thank goodness, because this particular lifter, he bombed out, and he would have won. You know, he was going to win that class. He bombed, and it's probably 2 in the morning. The meet's been over for a long time, and he's still kind of walking up and down in front of the hotel, which is a big main street in Lincoln, Nebraska, in his underwear and cowboy boots. I don't know why he was in his underwear, but he was.
This is a bigger guy?
No, yeah.
I think I know who you're talking about.
You knew I did.
I saw the dude in the shower one time that way. After a meet.
Exactly.
Crazy as fuck.
Yeah. And somebody that you, like, I would mention a lot of names. I would mention a lot of names here.
Oh, you mentioned
No, I wouldn't mention his. Oh, no. Oh, no. No. Because, all of a sudden, my chair just empty. This is empty. What happened to Doug? Yeah, he's not there anymore. I guess Adam going to have to carry on.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, so that was kind of interesting.
A little bit.
Yeah, that was interesting. The guy in the cab that actually asked the cab driver, Louie's recollection, my recollection, a little bit different. It was, I believe his name was Tom Farcione. I may have that right, but he was a big guy too. But he was from New York. Very thick accent. And he's the one that asked the cab driver. And the cab driver just, well, they're at the lake. This is Lincoln, Nebraska. And he goes, Jesus Christ, that must be some kind of lake, or something. But with that accent.
Yeah.
That was a lot of fun. But, crazy things. I know that.
I mean, there's a lot of characters in the sport.
There's a lot of characters. I get accused.
I'll remember the rest of my life.
Yeah, me too.
I mean, Matt was another one too, by the way.
Yeah, and I didn't see him a lot.
Yes,
yes. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And when one of my recollections of Matt was him moving, I had a guy help me. I was lifting in Zanesville. Again, had to make a qualifier. You used to have to qualify. I'm sorry. I'm not going to do that anymore.
Well,
I just want to do it one more time for you,
Yeah.
even though it's not your fault.
Yeah.
Okay. So I had to do a qualifier. Well, I had a guy, I had somebody that was wrapping my knees. And then I didn't. Matt has moved this dude out. I don't even know Matt. I mean, I know who he is. I don't train down there. He's losing his mind. And I'm the crazy one. I'm crazy. But he's losing it. He's wrapping my knees and blah, blah, going nuts and shoving me out there. And I squatted 2 PRs and squatted, 30 pounds more than I ever had on my back or something,
Yeah.
So that was kind of fun, that interaction.
Yeah.
But I wish I had more, because you'd think there would be more, but I didn't always hang around and watch it as much as
I
know. The little guys lifted, and then I might be doing something else, but so I missed some things. But the guy getting arrested, and I love that dude. I mean, I like that guy, but that was.
Yeah, I mean, when I'm asked the same thing, like different meat stories. I mean, it's tough because you're going there for a purpose.
Well, yeah.
Right, so that's your focus. So you're not down there watching people beforehand, being heavier. I'm not watching.
Right.
I might go. I might watch like the flight or the session before mine.
Yes.
Get just to see where the judging is.
Yeah, right.
And then I'm the fuck out of there. I only want to be there as long as I have to be there.
Me too.
Then I'm done.
Yeah.
I'm usually beat up. I just want to get the fuck out.
Me too.
It's over. So a lot of that you kind of miss. Then you don't want to go to other meets unless you're helping somebody.
Well, I might be a bad person to ask in the sense that, and we talked about this last time too, but apparently I'm just waiting for somebody to tell me I was a good lifter, you know, in print, because that's never said. It's just, he was crazy. Even if they put you on some list that like, Dave, you're so happy to be on this list, tears are coming. Look at what I'm on. And then you get the little bit. And he was just crazy. So maybe I was just being so crazy that nothing else seemed crazy to me or whatever.
Yeah.
But I didn't get arrested.
No,
I never
you didn't
got
get arrested, and you weren't outside in your
I was
underwear
not
with
outside
cowboy
my
boots,
underwear.
right?
I was
And a
safe.
whole host of other shit.
And a whole lot of other stuff. You know, so I might not be the best person to ask.
Now, what about competitively when you look back on all the meets and all the lifts? Obviously, I mean, you probably got 100 meets in there. You don't remember every lift and all the other, but you do remember some.
Oh yeah.
But yeah. What are some of them that you remember, and why do you remember them?
Mine.
Yes.
Oh, Dave. I actually have pretty good memory with that stuff.
Yeah.
I mean, I remember Louie. Some of them are just, they were big lifts and they were important. Okay.
Yeah.
Right.
What important to win, or just important to you? I'm talking your own.
Oh,
lifts.
I'm sorry.
Yeah.
No, like having to pull a big deadlift to win.
Yeah.
Important like that.
Yeah.
So there's things that I remember there, that other things are like, you know, hey, you were the first guy to bench 400 or 132 and over that. That, you know, you're going to remember that shit because everybody's flipping out and going crazy.
Yeah. As well as yourself.
Yes.
I was, but
We had reason.
the day that it happened, the first day I benched 432 was at Columbus State. Louie was the head judge. And by no means did Louie Simmons come to me that day, or Jeff Corpenning, who was the meet meet director, I'm sorry. By no means did those guys come up and go, hey, what are you going to bench today? No, we're squatting first.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
So one of the day that I remember, the day that I got picked up by the meet director, this was in England. I had already benched 4, but we get in a car, Tony Command and he picked us up at the airport, and that was very nice of him. And I really liked the guy that did this. I liked him a lot. But he asked me, we can bench. It's the Worlds. I get, are you benching first? Well, no. I said, hell, I don't know what I'm going to bench. If I squat well, I'll probably bench pretty good. If I squat like shit, I'm going to bench nothing, because that's just me. But the things that you remember, for me, the first one was I had to pull a big deadlift to win the state meet. And there was a certain guy there, Ron Mercer, great lifter. He really was. And I had to, I needed this deadlift to beat him. So Louie was helping me. Louie had to go warm up. And I told this story last time.
Yeah.
But that was huge. That was a catalyst for me. And he got, Louie, don't let this guy paint you in a corner, Dad. And off he goes. There he goes. Well, I'm firmly painted in a corner. I've done exactly what he told me not to do. And I'm like, well, I'm in trouble. But of course, it's in Sandusky. And like I said, do you know Waddington? Did you know Dave? Okay. Well, Dave was really, really funny, like world-class funny to me, just a comedian. And he had told me, he had pulled me aside and said, hey, don't tell anybody, man, the hundreds are 88. They weigh 88. Well, I figure it's Wad, and he's kidding, and you know, and everything. But he's planted that seed, and sure enough, towards the end of the day, I've painted myself in a corner, and I need a 25-pound PR to beat this guy. But I don't have to worry about that, because the hundreds are 88.
Yeah.
So I only got to pull a 1-pound PR.
Yeah.
I'm good.
Yeah, exactly.
I'm stronger than I was last meet. I ought to be able to do 1 more pound.
Yeah, he failed to tell you that they weigh these things before the meet, right?
And so I made the deadlift, and that was a lift. Obviously, I'll never forget the 400-pound bench. And then, even more importantly, the 402, because that's in Italy in the Worlds. So if people are going to turn their nose up to, he's in Columbus State lifting a little meat, whatever, that's cool. Then we'll just go to Italy and pang, 402. you know, and I remember a lot of the big lifts and lifts that you needed to make, but some of the things that stick out to me are we were very fortunate to have Gary Benford, you know, put on 2 seniors in the APF and then 2 worlds in the WPC right here in town. So, you know, I got to lift there, and my whole family, I don't have a very big family, but, you know, work friends and, you know, and so on and so forth. I was blessed to lift very, very well there when people, they even brought the fire truck. You know, there were several fire trucks, and they had to run, they got to run, had to leave. But they showed up. So those things I remember. And I do remember, and I know you're going to relate to this too. I think you will. I shouldn't. I'm sorry. But I also remember the day he was talking about, in terms of in the gym.
Yeah, I remember. I remember those more than I do the rest.
You know, I remember the last time we went heavy.
Sure.
You know, the last time I went heavy, which is like you're talking about. It's high squats and, you know, blah, blah, blah.
It doesn't matter though.
Well, no, because, you know, if you've got, in my case, over 700 on your back, then that's the deal. I don't care what I'm doing with it. I mean, I'm crippled.
No, I get it.
But there were some lifts, you know, winning the 84 seniors. And again, there was only one. There was only one federation.
I know.
Okay. People listening to this,
they don't. No.
So they're going to think,
it's different.
why would the seniors be better than the worlds?
No. It's well.
Well, it was then. We were dominant. So dominant, it was amazing. And Louie had put that in my head too. Okay, which was good he did, because I didn't get to go to the worlds, but we talked on that.
Yeah.
Okay, but winning that, and Adam and I were discussing this the other night. So back then, still the round system hadn't come in, not in 84. So it's just weight on the bar. Okay, so my second attempt deadlift is my competitor, the guy that can beat me, his first attempt. And so he went first. He just did, and then I followed him. So, like, I wasn't trying to be a smart ass, I was trying to be confident. But I told Matt Lawrence, my God rest his soul, but I told Matt, who was there helping me. He pulled it, and it wasn't as easy as I expected. He was a great deadlifter. Right behind Gant. No kidding, right behind Gant. And he ended up pulling 620 before he was done at 132. So I'm, you know, it's not, but nobody else. So he opened 529. It's my second. And I go, man, I'm going to do this. Watch it. I'm going to psych him out. I'm going to do this easier than he did it. I really thought I was. I got a hold of that thing. It starts to go out. I'm going like, hey, man, who loaded this? What the hell's going on here? I made it, and it was 3 white lights, but it was harder than I expected. I had a funny look on my face. I'm like, uh-oh. You know, a smart person would have went 540. I would have took 11-pound jump to try to bump him a little. But not being that smart person, I went to 551 to have a little bit more time, like you're talking about. And I missed it. So now he needs 622. Now, he hadn't done the 620 at this time, but, you know, he had done over 6. So I go to the back of the Dayton Convention Center, because I don't want to see anybody see me crying and, you know, boo-hooing. And I go up in the stands. There's big stands all the way in the back. I can barely see the platforms. And I'm back there by myself. And he comes up, and I see that there's this father and son, and they're starting to come up. Nobody's back there. The place is pretty crowded, Dave, but it wasn't sold out.
Yeah.
I'm the only one back there, and they're starting to come up, and they're looking, and I don't know what the hell they're doing. And I'm waiting, and here he comes, and he comes out, JD Carr, and he starts pulling 622. And Dave, Adam, it just keeps going and going. And I'm just far enough away that, and I'm standing up, and I just sunk back in my chair. Everything just came out of me. I went, he's going to pull 622 and beat me. I'm not winning the seniors. And I'm just, there's nothing. So now I don't know that he followed himself, quite frankly, because there was some 48s and 65s.
To clarify, he missed that deadlift.
Oh, I'm sorry. Yeah, he didn't make it.
Yeah.
He didn't make it. I'm just sitting there, thank you. And I'm like doing CPR on myself incorrectly. And I'm like, oh my goodness. And here they come. This young kid, and he's got his little pad, you know, God love him. And he's scared, and his dad scared of me. The kid was bigger than I was. But you know, but he comes up and his dad goes, excuse me, Doug, Mr. Heath, whatever, you know, whatever. Could you sign? And I said, I don't mean to be rude. Could you just give me a minute? You don't have to, I will sign anything. Just, if you could just give me a second. Oh yeah, no problem. So they kind of sit down and he comes back out finally and tugs on it and it didn't go. And I'm like, oh my God. I would have rather won the seniors than the lottery. And I didn't have any money back then.
Yeah.
And I go down, get his book, you know, what's your name? Phil.
Yeah.
To Phil, best of luck. Doug Heath, 1984 senior national champion. Took me 10 minutes to sign it.
Yeah.
You know, so I mean, I'll never forget that. I'll never forget winning my first Worlds.
Yeah.
It's the first one. You're in Africa. You know, I'll never forget that because it didn't hit me right away. What do you mean
it didn't hit you right away?
Well, to clarify, Cheryl went with me, and in '86, Cheryl went to the Worlds, and I told this story last time, but I didn't go with her. She went to Hawaii, and she had beaten Doris, Louie's wife, and in the Nationals, and Doris is great, but this was before Doris went into the stratosphere. And I had people there, and I knew Cheryl was going to have help, and I thought it'd be okay. And it didn't. Cheryl went 3 for 9, and Doris ended up beating her. Okay. So I felt worse than Cheryl did. I really did. Okay. 2 years later, and this will tell you what kind of person I was versus her. 2 years later, we're going to Africa. Now, our way was paid the first year by the South African government because of the apartheid situation. They would do anything they could to get somebody to come there. Okay, so we didn't have to pay, and I had no money. Cheryl actually took out a loan and went with me, which, come on, you know, I didn't go with her, but that's just how great of a human being she was. She takes out a loan. She goes with me. I go through the meet. You know, I had a great day. Went 9 for 9. I knew I won. You know, it wasn't like I had to pull a big deadlift or anything. So it took me a while to hit me. My main focus was kind of her. She was out taking pictures and doing what you do out in the audience. It was on a stage in a theater. So she was kind of out there. And I had my helpers. So when it was time to get the trophies, I asked her to come back. Hey, just sit with me. And she didn't know what I was doing. I did. And so it was just about time for him to hand them out. And she goes, well, I'm going to go out and take pictures. I'm like, nah, man, I got, you know, Joe's over there, you know, it's cool. I kind of held her hand. I go, no, it's cool. Just sit here with me for a minute, man. I'm freaking out. I can't believe I won Worlds, you know, but whatever. Okay. And then they call my name, you know, and the winner at 132 from the United States, you know. And I just take her hand, pick her up, and pull her out with me. And I had him hand the trophy to her. That's the best I could do. And so that was my main focus. And probably 2 hours later, we're in the back of the auditorium, Joey Seinfeld from New York, and he looks at me and he goes, man, how's it feel? You're a world champ. And that's about when it sunk in, about 2 hours. And so I'm never going to forget that feeling. And the meets that you were blessed enough to have a good meet and people that you cared about, you know, got to see it.
Would you say that the titles meant more to you than the actual lifts?
They did back then.
Yes.
Lou wouldn't agree with this. I don't think. No, I know he wouldn't. But yes, Dave, thank you for asking that question. Yes, they certainly did. I lifted 3 times a year. Nationals, Worlds. If I won Nationals, I got to go to the Worlds. And then one other meet. That one other meet was to total.
Yeah.
That's what it was for. The Nationals try to figure out a way to win. The Worlds try to figure out a way to win. Now, what they did, I got lucky, which unfortunately it's too bad he doesn't have this now.
Yeah.
They changed the rules back. But in the middle period, they decided if you won the Worlds, you were back in, which is, I think it should be that way. That's just me, old guy, but I just think it should be that way. Give him something. You're not giving me any money.
Yeah.
Thank you for the medal, but hey, I'd like to have a free ticket. And I took advantage of that because, again, then you didn't have to pay the money to go to nationals. But yes, the titles meant more to me than the totals. But the total meant very much because when that magazine came out, that Top 100, you remember Powerlifting USA, the Top 100? Once a year was your weight class. You know?
Yeah.
That meant the world to me, but that was what that other meet was for.
Yeah.
A lot of time people might say, well, that doesn't make any sense. Well, it got to the point at the Worlds where they wouldn't even hardly let you lift weights at the end. I mean, you know, you had to squat this far below and this and that and the other, you know, and there was a lot of stuff going on. So yeah, I'd usually go to a meet in March, try to hit it in March, and you know, not the same kind of pressure. Take some shots, you know, and the years that you hit them, you're going to look pretty good.
Yeah. It was a different time though too, because, you know, I started young and then say after 4 or 5 years of competing and then going to college. When I went to college, I ended up training with Bob Wall and George Crawford. Was in the same gym. So, you know, when I came into the sport originally, it was USPS or USPF. I mean, that was kind of it. Shortly after, and I'm too young to really know what's going on, you know, was this pivot to the ADFPA, then the APF. There was a divide and whatever, you know, I didn't, too young to really care, but, you know, to listen to them talk about, you know, the Worlds and all this other stuff. And even back then in the APF, you know, my whole goal was the nationals. You had to qualify for the nationals and the nationals for the Worlds, and then I repeated each year. You know, when I finally did qualify for the nationals, like, okay, shit, this is good for 1 year. You know, next year I got to hit some little meet. Yeah, exactly. You know, at a certain point, it's just as a guest lifter for the qualifying total, and then, but it is that 3 times. But listening to their stories and. You know, you walk in, you're carrying a flag, there's a whole bunch of you, you're a different country. You know, it's a whole different story when you got to do this in a different country. You got to travel. Now, what they weren't telling me is that they had to pay their own way and shit like that. Because I'm like, wow, this is, you know, because that's kind of how my mind was is, you know, I want, you know, nationals, Worlds. I want nationals. Like, that was a huge thing. And then the longer I stayed in it, obviously, you know, more fracturing, more federations and all the other stuff. So when that time finally happened, it wasn't in the federation, you know, because there was a split at Westside too, where IPA, APF, you know, where are you going to go? You're going to go this way and have Louie hit your guts. You're going to go this way, you know, and it's just the way is, you know, and I mean, it's real. I mean, it's for real.
Yeah,
it was, you know, so
that's what they told me.
Yeah. So then once it wasn't what you explained, you know, it wasn't what I heard back then, you know, when that came, because it's like, yeah, I beat like 5, 6 people in the world, and they're all from like the East Coast. Yeah, exactly. Like you know, it's a different thing.
They
you
sure
know,
spoke English well, didn't they? Yeah.
But I do, you know, I'm kind of, I understand qualifying for the nationals, but I don't understand. You know, looking back on all that now, I wouldn't see like why he would have to qualify for the nationals and compete 3 times a year. No, yeah, it's just, to me, it seems too much.
I'm very surprised at that.
Yeah,
I love the APF. And
well, now granted, if you qualify in the nationals, that qualifies you for the nationals. Yeah, like, it just sucked if you bomb out of the nationals.
Right, but I couldn't understand why, as a defending world champion. Now I realize you.
I get what you're saying.
You didn't go last year, correct? But you had to go to the nationals after you won the Worlds.
Yes,
and that I couldn't, because I thought they got rid of that. But they apparently brought it back. And I made a phone call. Yeah. And they did bring it back. And I think the world champion, right? Yeah. You've gone over there. You've done what you had, wherever it is. You've done what you had to do. The one little caveat that you probably should get is, hey, you're in next year. Now, if you want to go to the nationals, that's great. Yeah. You know, but, you know, that's just me.
No, I can totally see that. Yeah. When you look at, how many years? I'm like 4th. You've been training for a long fucking time. You know,
Yeah, I start 71,
all right.
1971.
So, I mean, what are we talking about?
51
there?
years.
51 years, right?
I think.
So you spent a lot of time in.
I'm quitting. I'm done.
No, I get it. I get it. You're still. I hear the stupid shit now. So you're still doing the stupid shit. So,
Oh, yeah.
I mean, when you can.
Yes.
There's a lot of time in private gyms. There's a lot of time in your own home gym and all the other kind of stuff. Over the years that you've had training, what are the qualities that you've seen in the gym that have carried over into just your life in general? You know, how you view life, how you view people, you know, the fire department, all those different things. What qualities did you learn in the gym that you think helped?
I would say, you know, there's a discipline and an accountability. If you're going to be, you can be good at this. You can be a good power lifter. You might have really good genetics or whatever. You're just high school football player, tough kid, you know, blah, blah, blah. You can be good at it. But to be really, really great, you're going to have a passion, a real passion for it. That's nice. And some people have a passion for it. You know, they do. But you still have to, you better be disciplined enough. He touched on it, you know, you've had a hard day at work, but you better go in and work. And if you think you can't, I'll pull out a Powerlifting USA when they were so small, they were this big, the little ones, from 79, show you an article about Rick Gogler. And we'll read in there what he did for a living. And then you'll see that at that moment in time, he had the best coefficient in the universe. You know, he was that guy for a minute. So I read that article. And so I said, you know, you've got to go into the gym and you have the discipline and, you know, the wherewithal to get your work done. And then you hope that has a carryover in other things. Is that what you mean? Or do you want me to? I mean, there's an accountability. There's a discipline. The passion. I don't know, Adam, you know, he can tell you a little bit, but I'm that way. I'm kind of just about what I'm passionate about. You know, I mean, yeah, I could do this entire podcast on Rafael Nadal, but nobody would listen to it. But, you know, and there'd be tears coming down my face halfway through it because he witnessed that. And I could probably make it sort of explain it. I'm not trying to, but I'm just saying I'm kind of that way. So I'm very passionate about the lifting. And you notice the people that aren't. They're there for you. Hey, man, their day's not going to be ruined if they don't make they're going to be pissed for 3 minutes. You know, I'm being messed up for, you know, a long time. So there's just, I think, a discipline and an accountability from, and everybody hearing this that worked with me is going to laugh, and a work ethic. Now, yes, I was very good at doing as little as I had to do because I was always cognizant of the gym.
Yes.
So believe me, if we caught a working fire, yes, I went in and did what I had to do. Got the mask on, I'm doing what I have to do. But, you know, I'm not out going, man, I'm bored. I think I'll wax the truck. I think I'll just wax the truck on my own. But, oh, wait, no, I'm not waxing the truck. Tomorrow I'm going to be squatting. You know what I mean? So I didn't do that. But I think that, you know, you can also develop some of that, that characteristic.
Well,
like, I'm sure you worked your ass
off.
off.
I think that the thing is, it's focus is what you're talking about, right?
Yeah.
Like if you want to try to be the best at something or even try to be in the top 10% of something, that focus that has to be there.
Yeah.
You know, like 24/7.
Right.
There's no real balance. Yes, there's balance because you still have the job.
Yep.
You know, that's
Right.
paying for all this shit. So you're going to do everything that has to be done.
Right.
Probably at a level, you know, a little bit higher standard level than other people, but the focus is still 100% here. You know, so you retire and, you know, you go and do business and the focus has to be, you know, 100% there. But that all in, I talk about this frequently, that all in mentality, you know, it's a scary thing too,
Yes,
right?
it
Because
is.
you have it for this one thing.
Yes.
And then let's say you want to start something else.
Yeah.
Then you're like, ooh, do I really do I really want to go all in? Because
Yes.
I kind of know what that is, you know, and do
Yes.
I really want to do that with this?
Yeah. Well,
You know?
that's where he's got to glean that from you.
Yeah.
Because, you know, I'm not going to lie into this microphone and tell you I was all in on anything else.
Yeah. No, I was the same. I was
No, I
100%
wasn't.
the same way. I was 100% all
Yeah.
in. There's no doubt. I know what that is.
But you started this business, and so you've
Yes.
managed it. He's got a hell of a job now.
Yeah, yeah.
He's got a great position. I'm so proud of him.
Yeah.
And what he's done. Man, this is great, and you got to be all in because he's great lifting.
No, I enable the all-in part. Don't misunderstand.
Yeah.
I do until
he's great.
Yeah.
But man, make sure it's at both things. Make sure you figured out a way to be at both things. Don't half-ass that job.
No, and that's the balance part, though, right? Like you talk about, you have to find ways to support your lifting. I mean, that was the big thing. If you can't eat, you're not eating right, you're not eating optimally, you're not sleeping, you're not going to lift anyway.
Yeah.
So you got to find, you know, I call it building the base, and the job and the career is your base path or a way to be able to provide for yourself enough to be able to afford to do what you want to do.
Yeah.
And especially with traveling. I mean, man, you go travel overseas now, you're dropping $5,000. I don't care where you're going.
Yeah.
It's going to be a lot of money. So you've got to be able to make those type of things happen. So yeah, there's a balance there. But it's different type of balance. Even though when you're at work, you're thinking about the gym. What you're going to do at work, I'm cognizant of, like Doug was talking about. I'm not going to go out and go dig that drainage ditch today. That's going to wait till next week until
Well,
after
yeah, I
get
mean, that's
done,
what
right?
you were saying when we were talking about this before. That's that all-in type of thing.
It is.
I know we talked a little bit about this before, but when you were working with Buster Douglas, did he have that all-in mentality?
Oh, man.
How much time do we have?
Man, we'll roll, man. I want to, you know, because we talked about it for a little bit. Yeah.
He did not. Okay. And I know people throw this word around a lot, but I'm going to tell you something. I love him.
Yeah.
I love James Douglas.
Mm-hmm.
I call him Buzz, but I love Buzz. But if he was sitting right here, I mean, no, he was not all in. You know, he didn't even like to fight that much. His favorite thing was basketball.
Mm-hmm.
And he was good. He was a good ball player. I mean, he was on Linden's 1977 team that was number 2 in the nation. You're not on that team if you can't play.
Mm-hmm.
He can play. And he played at Coffeyville, Kansas, junior college and stuff. He could play. But then life hits, and you got to get a job. So he's fighting and working and fighting, working at Right Rug.
So he's fighting just
Just
to pay
kinda
the bills.
Yeah, just getting started, and he's
Yeah.
working at Right Rug.
Yeah.
Well, he don't like that. Carrying carpets, he don't like that.
No, yeah.
So he gets more serious. And he was just such a gifted athlete. So much better an athlete than most of the fighters. Way better athlete. And so when they hired me to be a strength coach, because that didn't happen right away when I first met him, but I got hired, and he's just, you know, most of these stories.
Mm-hmm.
Those are way funnier than lifting stories.
Mm-hmm.
Like, no, he wasn't all in. And here's another thing. Okay, so this was James. Okay, I was having him do not power cleans, but high power pulls.
Yeah.
Heavy power pulls. Don't clean it. I don't want to mess with your, you know, but just, well, those are hard. You know that. You know that.
Yeah.
Man, they're hard. Well, he was fine with those. But he didn't really want to do the light hammer curls at the end. That's James.
Yeah.
And so trying to figure that out. And my dad, God rest my dad, he said, you know, if you cared 1/2 as much as he does about this lifting, nobody'd ever beat you in Buster. I know, you know, but no, we had this Chinese restaurant that somebody discovered. I worked at a gym, and the guy that owned the gym discovered this Chinese little place, and it was called Takey Outie. Swear to God, Takey Outie. And the little guy there made good food, and he'd drive it wherever you are. Mm-hmm. So we ordered lunch from him every damn day. So, of course, Buster loves Chinese food. So he would come to my house to train, but he would put an order in for the Takey Outie, And then we'd get started. Well, how long's Chinese take? I mean, if he gets lost in the neighborhood, it might take him 20 minutes to get there.
Mm-hmm.
And when the doorbell rang and you're like, is that the doorbell? We're training. It's Dang. The guy's name was Dang, D-A-N-G.
Yeah.
It's Dang, take you outie. And then Buster's workout was over.
Yeah.
That was it. And sparring, I didn't have anything to do with that, but I mean, I watched him.
Yeah.
Oh, there was days if he wanted to fight, then somebody was in trouble. Most days, it'd be like, Doug, look at that girl. Look at her, or whatever, He was not all in. He was a great athlete. He paid, starting in 1990, because you mentioned it, I'm sorry, or you did, both of you did, Bobby Wall and them, you had to pay your own way. Well, in 88, we got our way paid to South Africa, but only because of apartheid.
Mm-hmm.
Never again.
Yeah.
So I go to Italy in 90, England in 92, 93 I'm in the fire academy, 94 and 5 was when Gary put them on in Columbus. So it didn't cost me anything. 96, 97, 98, I'm in South Africa, Durban. I'm in England, Blackpool. And then I'm finally, the last one was in Graz in Austria. Buzz paid for all of that. Every bit of it.
Yeah.
So he's just like his mom was. I mean, just this wonderful, good-hearted, great guy, and funny, so funny. Like we talked about with Lou.
Yeah.
People don't get that. Yeah, well, ridiculously funny. Buster's very, very funny. Now, his dad was a smaller version of Tyson. That's what he was. Killer. And he just, I mean, you'd cross the street if you see him come down the street.
Yeah.
Oh, that's Bill Douglas. Okay, I'll go over here. But Buster was training with him, and what do you do? Take
Well,
you
what
out
did
and
you
say-
do? I mean, because you got to find a way to maximize the time he would work.
I did, and so I got lucky in the first place because Adam trains people. You've trained people your whole life. Okay, so this one will really hit home for you two. They hire me, and I believe it's 2 weeks later. 3 maybe, but no more than 3, but I think 2 weeks. He's got to fight. So his first workout, and I didn't start him heavier, and you couldn't, but I mean, I really was trying to be careful.
Oh, yeah.
But he's never done it, David. He never has ever lifted it. He didn't lift for basketball. Okay, so he gets sore like you do the first time. You know how your arms feel, and your but again, this is just me getting lucky. You're not aware of your bicep until it gets real sore, and instead of I can't fight, he didn't give a shit about that. He's not going to spar anyway that day. He's like, I'm so much stronger. I'm stronger now. I'm going to kill this fucking guy. So I'm like, yeah, that guy's in trouble. He's finished. And it's 2 weeks. Dave, it's 2 weeks. And they got him in against some guy. And he knocks him out, which he didn't always knock everybody out because Buzz was aim carefree through punches half the time. So he knocks him out and he comes back to him. He goes, this is unbelievable. I go, I know. It's the greatest thing ever. Look at me. I'm a genius. Why am I not getting paid? And so, that was the start of it. But you still, you still had to pick and choose.
Yeah.
Like, oh my God, he'll do I call them power pulls.
Yeah.
He'll do power pulls. Isn't it? Oh, he would squat. Oh yeah, he'd squat. And he was a great athlete, so you could teach him how to squat. 6'4" and a half. So obviously, but yeah, he's squatting and and the weird things. Didn't want to bench. That was too hard. Everybody else's favorite thing.
Yeah.
So you find out what he will do and what he'll. But and then I got lucky too because James never got on a scale. until the weigh-in. Now, he's a heavyweight,
Yeah.
so it doesn't matter.
Mm-hmm.
But they weigh you in. It's just part of the deal,
Mm-hmm.
right? Okay, well, 226, 241,
Mm-hmm.
228. And I mean, nobody knew. He didn't know. I didn't know. He always had a lot of clothes on, sparkling.
Mm-hmm.
You never knew. So that was always funny because you'd be at a weigh-in like in Vegas and his brothers were there. And it's a big fight, say the Trevor Berbick fight right before Tyson. And we don't know. I have no idea. And he comes out, and Berbick comes out. He looks like a bodybuilder. Tyson comes out. He looks like a little power lifter.
Mm-hmm.
And Frank Bruno comes out and looks like a combination of the both.
Mm-hmm.
He looks better than all of them. Well, Buster's not built that way.
Mm-hmm.
He's just not. He takes his stuff off, but he looked really good for him.
Mm-hmm.
And he gets on that scale. I believe it was 226. And his brother starts hugging me. Thank you. This is great. We saw the odds walking in from the casino.
Mm-hmm.
When we walked out of that press conference after 226, you couldn't make any money on him. You know, the odds changed just like that. So you never knew what you were going to get there. Again, they think I'm the hero. He's lifting weights.
Mm-hmm.
I'm not watching what he's eating. Hell, I don't know if he's doing his road work. That's not the trainer I was. I was a strength coach.
Yeah.
But then you talk about getting lucky. Oh my God. So Buzz is at home. I'm eating dinner. My phone rings. I got the TV on. It's on ESPN. He calls. Doug. Yes, Buzz. What do you want? Are you watching ESPN? Yeah, oh yeah, there it is. I got it. How much is Mike Tyson? Mike Tyson's doing one-arm rows. We did them that morning.
Mm-hmm.
Swear to God. No, I'm not making this up. He's doing one-arm rows. You know this.
Mm-hmm.
With 40s. 40 pounds. And I don't care, whatever. But 100 reps, whatever. But he's doing them with 40s. Buzz goes, how much is that? I goes, 40 pounds. What did I do this morning? 120.
Mm-hmm.
I'm eating. Don't call me with this nonsense. You're so much fucking stronger than this guy. You're going to walk him all over the ring. You're killing me here.
Mm-hmm.
Do you really? I'm stronger than that guy. I ain't fighting him, but I'm stronger than that guy.
Mm-hmm.
Click, you know. But, you know, and that just seeps in, you know.
Yeah.
And so the first tie-up, Tyson comes charging out like he does, and he's going to bully somebody. And I'm like, okay. And, you know, they tie up, and Buzz walks him across the ring.
Mm-hmm.
Fight was over right then. It was over. And it just took a while. But
Yeah.
but he was, you could make a movie about him, and it would be a comedy. But it was never mean-spirited or anything, just...
Well, when he
comedy.
came to you, he was, I mean, in full honesty, he was a beginner in the weight room. He was a kid.
Oh, my God,
He was a
yeah.
kid that never lifted weights.
No.
Right? So that's kind of
Yeah.
really hard to fuck up.
Right.
But a lot of people would.
Yeah.
You know, a whole lot of people that we know now that train people for a living would completely destroy that.
Absolutely.
You know, what do you do when you're a complete beginner? You know,
Right.
you just find what's going to work for them, build
Right.
confidence.
Yeah.
And, you know, that's the process. Very simple.
Right.
You know, the process that you did and walking
Yeah.
through. But he's still at some point in the ring, something had to click at some point,
Right.
confidence-wise. You know, I
Yeah.
mean, he wasn't just in there screwing around. At some
No.
point, yeah.
No. Well, before the Tyson fight, his mom passed suddenly. And that, you know, he was in great shape, you know,
Yes.
and he was strong and all of that. But he fought that fight for her. So
Yeah.
Mike was in the wrong place at the wrong time.
Yeah. So what did you think him going into that fight? Honestly, what did you think?
Well,
was gonna happen?
honestly, his manager at the time had fired me a few weeks out. So they had got, there was a period of time where they wanted me to quit Buster didn't. His manager wanted me to quit my job and be with him 24/7 through the fight.
Yeah.
Move in.
No, I can see where that's coming from.
Make sure he's doing his road work. Make sure he's eating right. Make sure he's getting to the gym. Well, I had some money saved up. I liked my job, but it wasn't the fire department or, that. Love the people I worked with and for, but so we had a meeting.
Mm-hmm.
Well, they're not offering me any money yet. You'll get paid after the fight, depending, blah, blah, blah. I said, okay, I have a house payment and a car payment. And you were talking about groceries?
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, they were less expensive then, but of course I wasn't making any money. So they were expensive. And, the things you have to do. And so I tried to broker a deal, and I think I went in asking for 4%,
Mm-hmm.
hoping to get 2%.
Mm-hmm.
And I was portrayed as this another white guy trying to get in your pocket.
Mm-hmm.
Okay? He knew better than that.
Mm-hmm.
But Buzz, before he knocked out Tyson and after, were two different people.
Mm-hmm.
He couldn't stand up to this guy. And so I was out. And so I had got it was maybe 3 weeks.
Mm-hmm.
So he would still come in the club that I worked at, and I could watch him. I'd watch over the thing and everything, but I was out. So when you ask, it's complicated. Until I was out, we were winning that fight.
Yeah.
When I was out,
Because the confidence could have changed.
when I was out, I was hurt.
Yeah.
Why wouldn't he stick up for me?
Yeah.
Why wouldn't he stand up to this guy? So, I kind of went, I don't care.
Mm-hmm.
I don't care. And I'm in my living room watching the fight. My dad was there, and girlfriend, and I'm watching this thing. And I see him come out of the tunnel. And I'm like, and I was just butthurt. Why am I not in Tokyo? That's where the fight was.
I get it. Yeah.
So I'm really hurt.
Mm-hmm.
And he comes out of the tunnel, and I go, I look at my dad, and I'm going, Jesus Christ. He doesn't give a shit about this guy at all. He's not scared at all.
Mm-hmm.
This fight's over. He's fine. And so I'm watching the fight, but not as crazy as you would think, because, again, I'm butthurt.
Yeah.
And then he got knocked down in the 8th. That was a hell of an uppercut, by the way. I mean, Tyson's all fucked up. He slipped and threw that from, South Bronx or something, Well, Buzz got up. He was in shape, and he was strong, and we had everything together. And so he got up, and I said, and I lost my mind. I mean, get up. And from that point to the end of the fight, he was a great friend, and I loved him.
Mm-hmm.
So, and then he won the fight, and then it got weird again. And people start calling on the phone, and you should have been there, and it was a weird night for me, to be perfectly honest. Then he came over. He couldn't go anywhere after he got home real quick, but he couldn't. He's the heavyweight champion of the world now.
Yeah.
So everything's different.
Well, and he knocked out.
And he knocked out Mike Tyson. I'm sorry.
So
he knocked out the Invincible. Okay.
Yeah.
So he can't go anywhere. So the first time he got to go somewhere by himself, he jumped in the caddy, and he came over to my house. On his way to OSU, he was going to a basketball game. They were going to introduce him at halftime. And he was by himself. First time. And it'd been a while.
Mm-hmm.
And he came in, and Matt and Mark, they're going crazy. My mom was there at the time. She's trying to take pictures, cutting his head off and getting our, the whole thing. And I was pissed. I was pissed.
Mm-hmm.
And he knew it. And so Matt and Mark, and they're getting pictures and everything. He had to go, and I walked him up, and I went, that wasn't right what you did, man. He goes, I know. He goes, I'm really sorry. That'll never happen again. He says, Doug, I couldn't stand up to John, whatever. And he gave me some money.
Mm-hmm.
He didn't owe me anything.
Mm-hmm.
They were paying me a little bit a week, but a very little bit, but that's okay.
Yeah.
And he gave me some money, which at the time was huge. But and then we had a meeting at the Cooker. I don't know if you ever went to a Cooker restaurant. You might not remember them, but anyway. So we go to the Cooker. It's Buzz's favorite place and mine too. My favorite place. And we're sitting at the cooker. He signed to fight Holyfield, 24 million.
Mm-hmm.
And people are coming up and asking him for his autograph. We've been in the cooker for years.
Yeah,
Nobody's ever asked us for anything.
Yeah.
Hell, I got more world titles than he does, But, anyway, nobody asked me for shit, So he's sitting there, and people ask me this all the time, so I'm going to answer it out on the airwaves.
Mm-hmm.
I hope this gets to everybody. They go, he decided he wasn't going to lift for the Holyfield fight. Just didn't want to. Okay? So that's the meeting we're having. He goes, I don't want to hurt your feelings. You're going to go to the fight. I'm going to put you up. I'm going to fly you out there. You're going to go to the fight, blah, blah, blah. But I'm not going to lift. I'm like, well, I don't think that's a good idea, but why not? He goes, Doug, I saw Holyfield in a club in Atlanta. Okay? He can't dance. No, I'm at the cooker. Oh, shit, fuck, no, don't lift. Hell, I wouldn't do anything. Not even try. Fuck. If he can't dance, of course he can't fight. And people go, what did you say? I said, pass the ketchup. He just knocked out Mike Tyson. What are you going to say? I'm going to kick your ass, or I can bench more than you? What are you kidding me?
Mm-hmm.
But and he flew me out there, and there I was. I'm next to his secretary. We got great seats, and the tunnel that they come out of, the thing, right before the fight started, here comes O.J. Simpson. Prior to the little accident.
Yeah.
Simpson comes out. I never liked O.J. Simpson.
Mm-hmm.
I love Jim Brown. I don't like O.J. Simpson. That's that other guy that wore 32. He comes out, and people are, juice. And we're kind of hanging out over me, and we're in the first row because we want to see Buzz come out. And somebody goes, hey, man, can I get a picture? Sure. He thinks I ask. So he leans in, he's got his arm around me. And I'm getting a picture with O.J. Simpson that somebody's taken that I don't know. And I'm like, you got to be kidding me. Well, Buzz weighed in at 246 or something. And he was in the hot box for a long time. He weighed way more than that.
Mm-hmm.
And he didn't train. And so he gets hit and goes down. I didn't even see it. His back was where we were at.
Yeah.
And he gets hit and goes, and she grabs me, the secretary. Oh my God! And she's going crazy, and she's bigger than me, and everybody is, but she's bigger than me. I think I'm going to suffocate and die. I can't get away from her. I'm like, oh my God, And then he disappeared for a few days. Nobody could find him, right?
Mm-hmm.
And ring, ring, ring. Doug. Yes, Buzz. I'm out in L.A. Man, the people out here are unbelievable. You should see these people, and that's just how he was. He didn't care. I mean, I think he wanted off the merry-go-round, to be honest with you. But Holyfield's a great champion, but he had lifted, and they had taken him from a light heavy, cruiserweight, right? Maybe light heavy even, and into cruiser up to, and they did it the right way and stepped him right up. So, but yeah, you could make a movie about Buzz. And it would be not what people would think. One of the best people I've ever met.
So with this whole tennis thing, we talked about it a little bit last time.
We did.
Where I still don't quite get where you're coming from. Where Adam's telling me the other day there was a match. And
Nadal.
And you
in the finals. Yeah.
You lost your shit.
Oh yeah.
So
yeah.
Where's this all come from?
Well, it started in '77 at the Junior Nationals at the meet that the guy was walking in his underwear. That's where it all
because they play tennis at a meet?
No. No. Do you remember, did Louie ever tell you about, they had a rule that lasted one meet, and it was a rule where if the bar came up, you know how people used to dump the squat once in a while?
Yeah.
Not a lot, but sometimes.
Yeah.
Well, if the bar left your back, Lyle Schwartz decided you were out of the meet.
Yeah, so if you dumped it, you were
gone.
Yeah.
Okay. So, 1977, Junior Nationals, Lincoln, Nebraska. Louie's helping me. He's lifting the next day. or later on that after. It doesn't matter. But he's helping me. And I come out of the squat, and I start to lose my balance, and I'm trying to hold on to it, but I can't. And it's starting to come up. Now I'm a 114, and it's my opener. I'm not even opening with 400.
Mm-hmm.
It's 3-something. A very conservative opener, because I'm going to win this meet. It's my stepping stone.
Yeah.
And I was going to. So anyway. So it starts to come off. Now, I was younger then and more nimble. And so I spun around, and I got it here, and the spotters have it, and we just put it back in the rack.
Because you didn't want it at the ground.
Yeah, exactly.
No, okay, I get it.
It's no big deal.
No, I get it.
They're not mad. It's 300 and some pounds.
Yeah, I get it.
They couldn't care less.
Yeah.
And Lyle Schwartz can't wait to throw me out of the meet.
Yeah.
This is the happiest day of his life.
Yeah.
It's Doug Heath gone.
Mm-hmm.
I'm the first one. One other guy got thrown out of that meet.
But the bar didn't hit the floor.
No, bar never hit the floor. But it came off my back.
Oh, I got it. All right.
This rule lasted one meet.
Mm-hmm.
Do you remember who the other guy was? I've told you. Fred Hatfield.
Yeah, there you go. I should have known.
Fred Hatfield.
Mm-hmm.
He's so much smarter than me, of course. He says he tore his hamstring. But Lyle, he's smart too.
Mm-hmm.
He teaches at Northwestern. He's no dummy. And it's not bleeding out.
Mm-hmm.
And so I was out of the meet. So was Fred later on. I take the knee wraps. Louie had one pair, and I just fling them.
Mm-hmm.
And Louie's running after him because the only pair we have. We have one pair of knee wraps for him and me. And he's running after him. One's on a raft, and the whole thing. I lose my mind. I go upstairs. I'm not coming out of my room for 2 days.
Mm-hmm.
I turn it on. Mike Bridges is downstairs benching a world record at 148. And I'm in my room watching Jimmy Connors and Bjorn Borg. And Connors has got a splint on his thumb and blood seeping through this thing. And he goes 5 sets. Mm-hmm. And he loses, but barely, to Borg. And I love this guy. This is the fucking greatest thing I've ever seen in my life. Louie's losing it. You got to come down and watch Mike Bridges. I don't give a fuck about Mike Bridges. So that's where Connors started. Mm-hmm. When he retired, I became normal again. But I had a friend in North Carolina, Kevin Steele, and he just every few years, starting in 2005, he would go, I can't believe you're not watching Nadal. You're not watching Nadal. I don't care. I'm not getting sucked back in. It was too much. It's too much for me. I'm not getting
Why is this?
Because I'm too passionate about it. Not about everything.
Yeah.
I can watch some sports and I'm normal.
Yeah.
But the things that I really love, I said, I'm not getting sucked back in. I'm not watching. I miss most of his career, to be honest with you.
Yeah.
And finally, in 17,
Yep.
Kevin won't leave me alone, and I watch a match, and I'm like, are you kidding me? Look at this guy. And he's just, his intensity is just his tenacity, it's just, and I get sucked completely in.
Nadal's been hurt a million times. You can relate to it.
Yeah. 2005's when he was diagnosed with Mueller-Weiss syndrome. His fucking foot, he can't walk, and he's played 17 years. They had to inject him before every match at the French Open. He beats, well, anyway.
They're doing nerve
He
blocks.
makes nerve blocks. He makes an incredible run. He wins it. So, and then Kevin, now we text, and I thank you for that. But he's towards the end of his career. Mm-hmm. But that's where it came from. And with Connors, I became more intense watching him. Like, this guy's crazy on the court. I mean, he was. And not John McEnroe crazy.
Yeah.
Like, I might kill you with my tennis racket.
Yeah.
That kind of crazy. And I really stole a lot. And the mental side, again, at 77, I wasn't that good. All of a sudden, I'm intense. Now, we talked about this before, and I'm going to just say this once and leave it alone. I love Chuck. I think the world of Chuck Vogel. Mm-hmm. But Chuck is intense. Mm-hmm. Doug Heath is crazy. And that bothers me. Chuck would not say that. It's not him, but it's everybody else. He's crazy. Chuck's intense, or whoever.
Yeah.
No, I'm intense. That's what you're seeing. It's a bubbled over intensity, but you know. So I got that from Connors, and it really made a difference in my lifting. And now, watching Nadal, because at 17, I'm already retired. I'm doing what you're doing.
Yeah.
But I'm watching that, and I plug that in. Hey, wait a minute. We're not dead yet, you know. And you got these guys here, and, you know, he's doing
Yeah.
And you're like, okay. And I don't try to make him like me. Oh, my God, there's no two more opposite people in the world.
Yeah.
Nothing bothers him. Nothing in the world. It just absolutely drives me crazy. And everything bothers me. You know, I could be bothered by it. Is the sun not out? This is ridiculous. But, you know, that kind of thing. And Adam said, I had a great day. You know, it's just, he's this that way. But that's where the tennis came from. And I did play. And I played in a tournament on clay, and I got to the final, and that was the closest to death I've ever been. Dave.
Yeah.
I thought I was going to die. I hung on and I won. And then I thought I was going to die. And, but that's where that all came from, all by accident.
So with that intensity, basically you're pulling from that, you're pulling it into yourself.
Yes,
right?
I am.
To be able to, and you know, when you're speaking about Adam, you know, being completely different, you don't think that he's pulling, that he learned some of that intensity from you, that he's just using it in a different way?
Yes, I think, I don't know, because we've never had that discussion. He's such a technical person, and he's such a in my opinion. Now, you've seen everybody.
Yeah.
So you know. But he's so technical that I'm sure he's intense, but he does need to tamp it down because he can't make a mistake technically. He's so technical. I wasn't. I mean, if you had films of me, my feet, one foot, I wasn't that technical.
Yeah.
I was all emotion. He's very, very technical. I do think he's intense, but he doesn't get mad like I do. You know, I mean, he just doesn't. He just internalizes things different. I mean, he's not throwing shit, and he knows he can. I don't give a shit. He can throw anything he wants in my gym, you know what I mean? Yeah. But he doesn't. So I hope something positive rubbed off on him. You know what I mean? But what was so great is that they were so pliable. You know, he and Craig couldn't be more opposite, but just, hey, man, I told you the truth. We talked every day. I'm going to tell you everything I know. It's just not much, because I was in a bubble, and I wasn't asking him. I didn't give a shit. I mean, I won 8 of those world titles. I'm not patting myself on the back, but I got best lifter in 4 of them. So I was doing pretty good. I was second twice. So I wasn't really seeking a lot. Boy, I wish I would have a lot sooner. Wish I'd have known about them bands and squatting with bands. I probably wouldn't. But anyway, I didn't do a lot. So I was very limited in what I could teach them. And here's what I know. They jumped right on board. And
I don't think you're limited in what you could teach them, and I can kind of display that real quick.
Yeah.
Do you think that you would have won a national championship without his help?
No, not even close. There's more to it than that. So, like, for me, the big difference between us, Doug, is you're an extrovert and I'm an introvert. I do not externalize much of anything. Every girl I've ever dated will say I have no emotion. It's because I don't show any. That's just not me. I'm very much an internal person. I got a lot going on upstairs, and it never stops, which is part of the reason I don't sleep. But the intensity, what you display externally, is what's going on inside of my fucked up head when I'm getting ready to go train. I might not put that out, or as soon as I get underneath that bar, I was talking with him the other day. For him, it's when he grabs the bar. For you, it's right before you lift, where you start getting real wound up. For me, it's as soon as I get under the bar. As soon as I get under the bar, I flip that switch, and that's the intensity in my own head. But it's hard because I don't externalize that. And then the biggest thing I think too, I guess the takeaway too, is outside of just the training and how to train and the intensity within training and the passion, those type of things. I think the other big takeaway was, like he was talking about, winning nationals, but it's so much more than just winning nationals. First off, the first step is actually qualifying and going to nationals.
Right, sure.
Right? And then once you get there, learning how to play that numbers game. Because he hit it on the head. He talked about it earlier. You go to nationals to win, you go to worlds to win, and then you got to go to that third meet to put up that total. And yeah, you want to put up your biggest totals that you can at national and worlds because, like he said, I mean, my big goal is to win best lifters at those meets. I mean, I'm not just going there just to win the weight class. It's obviously the top priority is to win the weight class, but then the secondary priority is you're gunning for best lifter, especially at a lighter weight class. I got the coefficient in my advantage. Go ahead and try to pin it as best as I can. Like this last meet I just did. I dropped the extra kilo, got down, weighed in at 74 kilos to give me the coefficient advantage to take a shot at it. So if I did have a good day, or a really good day, I should say, I'd be right in that wheelhouse for best lifter. I was playing the numbers even before the meet even started. And that's where I learned it from you, is look at who's coming. You're going to know what they're going to weigh. You're going to have a rough idea of what they can total. How are you going to figure out a way to beat it? If they're going to have their best day, can you beat it on your best day? If so, how are you going to do that? And sometimes that means cutting that extra pound. Sometimes that means taking that deadlift. That I call it gaming is the way I kind of tried to word it, but gaming within the meet. And I think that was one of the biggest things. I'll never forget. Do you remember the first meet you came with me to?
Was it the state meet or the state meet in wherever we were?
Grand Rapids.
Oh, I'm sorry. Yeah.
As a coach, because the first meet
as
you
a
came
coach,
to,
yes.
First meet you came to was that state meet in Ohio.
Yeah,
in
no, as a
Springfield.
coach was, I remember.
Yeah, the first meet as a coach was then Grand Rapids.
Yes.
And we went to that state meet, and that's where we really got to play with the numbers because that was the first meet that I'd cut to 48. I'd been back down in 48 in like a year and a half. And then we came back and we out totaled what I did at 65.
Right.
And we just gamed it that time. That was to me, that was one of the most impactful meets because I qualified for Worlds at that meet, put up a massive PR total. Yeah. My coefficient jumped over 100 points, all in one meet. And you're sitting
remember
here.
the deadlift?
Yeah, of course I do.
Right before?
Uh-huh.
Okay.
110% because we had a guy that used to train with us. That was pretty huge at that moment in time. A guy that used to train with us passed away a couple months before this meet. And he competed at 148, which was a big reason I cut down to 48 for that meet. And he was a big deadlifter at 148, and I was taking it just over top of what he pulled. And I'm sitting there, we're getting ready to pull, and Doug comes up to me, like, you're going to pull this for Mikey. And he's got me all wound up and going nuts. And sure as hell, I mean, that was like a 35, 40 pound PR at least. Oh,
yeah.
He put his head up, freaking forehead to forehead, sitting there, just going, you're going to pull this for Mikey, you're going to do it. And sure as shit, we get up there and freaking, before we did that, I wasn't so sure. And then as soon as you said that, it just was like done. That bar was, there's no way that wasn't going to be a good lift at that point in time. And that was a very pivotal meet for me. That meet definitely meant a lot, and that changed quite the trajectory of what I learned how to. There is an art form to powerlifting outside of just executing the lift. Learning how to game and how to win meets and do it over and over and over again is an art form in and of itself. And that's something that if you go back and look at his open powerlifting numbers and you watch some of the numbers change by a couple kilos here, a couple kilos there within the same meet, it's not because that was all he could do at some of those meets. A lot of times, if you really go back and look at the meet results, which I'm a history nut, so I did, I go back and look and see he was just literally taking, 2.5 here, 2.5 there to get the advantage to be able to win those meets. And like I saw sometimes, the bench was usually what he was trying to really push, but you'd watch the squat and the deadlift modify a little bit here, a little bit there, just so he had to do exactly what he needed to do, as little as he needed to do in order to win, to save some in the tank or not show his whole hand. Because a lot of times when you're going from a state meet to a national meet, depending on where you're at, you're going to face those same people again. Or at national to worlds, you don't want to tip your hand in the open powerlifting days. They're going to put up those totals, they're going to put up those meet results. People are going to see that. You don't necessarily want to tip your full hand. So that was another thing that I learned coming off of there.
Yeah. The guy's name was Mike Mead, by the way.
Yeah. When we were talking earlier, you expressed how passionate you were, for powerlifting, obviously. I mean, some of us are just, meatheads that get sucked down this hole, right? I mean, it's a big hole, and you sacrifice. Actually, we don't. Other people sacrifice for what we're doing, right?
Right.
But it's not easy. It's certainly not easy to have that discipline. There's a cost associated with all that. I mean, you're paying it. I mean, we're all paying it. But the way that you talked about the world championships and what it meant and those titles and all that other thing kind of makes it worth it, 100%. And you realize he just told you that he wouldn't have been able to win the seniors without you.
Yeah.
But yet he's got 4 of those worlds now.
Yeah.
So that's that same feeling. That without you, he may not have had that.
I know I wouldn't have.
Yeah, well,
There's a lot there. I
Yeah.
mean, for the two of us, we've been through a hell of a lot. The last 6 years, I mean, he got to watch me grow up.
Yeah.
I was still a damn kid, 19, coming out. There's a lot of things going on in my life at that point in time. That, like, the crew's blowing up, that was one thing, and that meant a lot to me. And then, you know, a lot of life things were happening, people moving, people dying. It was a wild time those first 3 years we were together. Things were rough. And the gym, I pretty much lived at his house. I mean, I didn't, but I did. I was there all the damn time because it was the only thing I knew to do, just not to get in trouble. I'd just freaking go to the gym. I was either in school, at work, or I was in the gym, and that's just what it was. And he really helped me learn to, because like he said, we're totally opposite people, but at the same time, I just took what he was able to teach me and I utilized that in a different capacity than what he did. And so whether he realized it or not, there's a lot of those things that was there. And I think, you know, the biggest takeaway too, the even bigger one was understanding the history of the sport and where you came from. I mean, I talked about that before, but I mean, I don't know if I told you this. He has a whole trophy room. There's what normal people would have. It's an office. You have a whole trophy room. And if you've never stepped in there, you don't know what it feels like. To this day, I remember the first time I stepped in that trophy room, and you stop, and he's got a plaque on the wall with the top 100 list where he's number 1. And it's not 1, not 2, not 3, not 4, 5 top 100 lists in open powerlifting where you're looking there going, holy shit. And then you keep spinning your head around, and it's trophy, 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 sword, trophy, globe, trophy, trophy, trophy. And you go start reading some of these. You're going through the nationals, the worlds, this place, that place, the next place. And then he opens up the cabinet down below, and it's every training log that you've ever had. Mm-hmm. And my takeaway from looking at all that is knowing the history of the sport, where the sport came from, is extremely important in the developmental of understanding what you're trying to do. And because if you don't understand where the sport's been or where the people have been before you, how the hell are you going to know where the heck you're going? And so that was kind of the coolest thing. And, you know, yeah, definitely without him and without that moment, without those moments, those meets, those lessons in the gym, him letting me come up and see the trophy room, that one of those first couple of days that I was in the gym, that totally pivoted. I would not have national titles. I wouldn't have world titles. I'd have kept going on the same path I was, which was blowing crap out. And not that we haven't had our fair share of injuries. And kind of beating my head against the wall. The mental changes and the things I took from him and how he trained and how he lifted is what flipped that switch for me to be able to get to that next tier. And like he said, things just started chink, 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 just checking off boxes as we were going. Because the other thing that I really took from him too is setting realistic and attainable goals for each meet. Yeah, realistic goals. Because we all want to talk these huge numbers.
Yeah.
Kids all the time, okay? We're just talking about, everybody wants to come in, they want to be the greatest all time at 198. They want to be the greatest all time in whatever the best class is, 242. That's great, but
it don't work like that.
It don't work like that.
No.
Realistic goals.
Yeah,
Bobby
yeah.
Wall. I got that
Yeah.
from Bobby Wall.
Yeah, the overarching theme here is the reason why I started this company is, you know, this live, learn, pass on type thing is because, you know, through the weight room in my own life, you run across people, you know, or coaches and stuff like that. They'll do things that create pivotal moments that create, you know, world champions, you know, so you're that, you know, one of those pivotal moments for Adam, which represents, you know, exactly what this company stands for, what I do this podcast for, you know, so I want to thank both you guys for coming on. We'll just kind of shut this down and I appreciate it.
All right.
No, likewise.
Thank you guys.
Appreciate it, Dave.
Thank you.